Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Happy New Year. Take a breath. I'm really happy to be reconvened with all of you. And before we get started, I wanted to acknowledge the really dark day. Yesterday was tragic and traumatic. And if you're struggling or if you don't feel safe or you don't feel comfortable, we certainly understand. I certainly understand. It's barely been 24 hours, and I hope that you have people in your life you can talk to and connect with. I personally was looking forward to coming tonight and feel really more committed than ever to this work. And I also see it as another just rude awakening, honestly, of the systemic oppression and racism that this group is well aware of and experiences. So I don't want to take up too much time, but wanted to acknowledge it. And I think I'll do roll call and then we'll turn it over to Lisa. I know you have some opening remarks, Lisa, as well. So you want to do the roll call, Anne?
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Starting off the new year. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Okay, Alexandra?
Here.
Alexandra? Here, okay.
Here.
Amal?
Here.
Daria?
Here.
Griselda?
Here.
Layli? Liesel?
Here.
Patrice?
Here.
Serena?
Here.
Sophia? Do we have Sophia?
Doesn't look like it.
No.
Should I
Okay, Tayu?
text her?
Here.
Yeah, I saw Tayu. Veronica?
Here.
Bruce?
Here.
And Stephanie?
Here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, does somebody want to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I make an motion to approve the agenda.
I second.
Terrific, thank you. Lisa, do you want to kick us off? I think you're on mute.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Before I start, I would actually like to take a moment of silence. I would like to honor the lives lost yesterday. I would also like to honor the incredible breach of our democracy yesterday. And I would like to honor the lives lost in our country's struggle for justice and ask that we take a brief moment of silence to honor that. Thank you. So thank you all for being here tonight. In keeping with just what I said briefly last time regarding land acknowledgements, I acknowledge that we are on Coast Miwok land. And I'd also like to take it a step further beyond simple acknowledgement. And I want to continue to bring in Indigenous voices. And I also want to continue to remind us that these are not issues that exist in a mythical past. As we were reminded yesterday, these are issues that exist and are living today for our Indigenous communities. And I believe that part of my work is always to remember to lift up the voices of people of color, not only around me in my own community, but that exist in our national dialogue around these issues. And so I would invite you to join me, providing my screen share works. And we are going to enjoy just a brief minute of music by a very popular, he identifies as a Puerto Rican, Native American, and Filipino musician. And he, this particular excerpt of a song, and I'm going to quote him, and if you don't mind humoring me for this just 30 seconds, I think it's important to contextualize in his own voice. This is the purpose of the song that I'm sharing. And it's Nako, if you know him. At a time in our country where every 28 hours, a Black or brown person is shot by a police officer, it is imperative to call on our white allies to stand in solidarity with those that face state violence every day. Where is the justice? In this song, we ask our allies to remember that to be colorblind is to be system blind. Racism is a system, patriarchy is a system created to divide us. In order to become a better ally, we've got to acknowledge how differently Black and brown folks are treated in this country and put down the weight and guilt of privilege. These are his words. Once we do that, we open ourselves up to our highest self and to all the possibilities love has to offer us. And that is a life worth living. Can you see that?
Yes.
And this is just a brief 1 minute.
The record, I wrote this note as a reminder. Hermano mío, there's a future you can believe in. Gonna take more than songs of justice and freedom. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. There's a future you can believe in. Gonna take more than songs of justice and freedom. Freedom, yeah, if you're thinking about leaving, hold my hand, overstand, this too can be your kingdom, blessed. And when there ain't...
Oh, sorry, I messed up my timing on this beautiful moment. Hold on.
You can believe in. Gonna take more than songs of justice and freedom. Freedom, yeah, if you're thinking about leaving, hold my hand, overstand, this too can be your kingdom, blessed. And when the rain comes, put your hands in the dirt, Baba, this is where you came from. This is where you came from. This is where you came from. This is where you came from.
So if you'd like to continue listening and learn more about his voice, the song is Dear Brother. So thank you. All right, Anne, could you please share the screen of our PowerPoint?
Yeah. Can I ask one question first before you start?
You sure can.
When you did the motion, was that the motion to approve the agenda? And then when you did that, did you actually do a roll call vote? Did we do one?
We did a motion to, we didn't do a roll call, a round robin roll call to approve the agenda. No,
Okay, well,
we just did a first and second to approve the
approve it.
agenda.
Oh, okay. So you didn't actually do a roll call. Okay. Technically you should, but how about this? Who actually did the second though? That's who I missed. Ah, no, okay. I got that right. Okay. Yeah, you can either need to do a roll call or maybe for this one time, just raise your hands if you're all supportive of approving the agenda and then we could just pass it this one time. Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Lisa, can you put your video back on so we can see your hand? Please. Okay, we didn't capture. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Okay.
Okay, so Anne, if you could share a PowerPoint. And if you can go
Okay,
to
and which one?
the PowerPoint. And if you can go to this purpose slide, you'll have to click a couple slides over.
Okay. Right. There it is. Okay.
There you go. It's the one that says C1 points it, yeah. And then just click 2 slides over to the purpose slide. Skip that. There we go. Thank you. Oh, back one more.
Oh.
Perfect. Right there. Oh, no, backwards. I think you're clicking the forward button.
Hmm. I'm not seeing it.
Over on the left side of the screen, there's another button that goes, yeah.
Purpose,
It's an all blue slide.
process,
Purpose, right before that one.
Right before that.
Right before.
process. This, okay. Got it?
Nope, it's a blue slide that says there you go. Stop. Perfect. Okay, can I have a ResJ member read out loud our purpose tonight, please?
I'll read.
Thank you.
Purpose of the ResJ. The Racial Equity and Social Justice Committee will be advisory to the Town Council of Fairfax, California. The committee will focus on actively dismantling and eradicating systemic and individual racism, bigotry, and discrimination within our town in an effort to create a Fairfax that is explicitly anti-racist, equitable, and inclusive in both word and deed.
Thank you so much. I know for me as facilitator, you know, in the last 24 hours, we have certainly been taken by the events in our country. And I think reading this tonight in light of those events brings definitely a certain tenor to our evening tonight. And I'd like to call out a really particular and important distinction for us as a ResJ. We are not a task force. We are a public committee set forth by the Fairfax Town Council and voted on by the Fairfax Town Council. And I just want to highlight that. And I want to thank all of you for your service. We are a small but mighty town here in Fairfax. And this is the democratic process playing out before us. Your interviews, your public facing interviews, your Fairfax Council deciding as a member, as public members of a committee to create a ResJ. And this is different than a task force in that everything that we do must be seen and heard by the public if we are to convene as an entire ResJ. And so our process inherently is slower. And it is also inherently more inclusive because we need to ensure that in all our decision making, in all of our content creation, and in all of our dialogue, that the public is included, that it is a democratic process. We are here to serve the citizens of Fairfax on behalf of the purpose that you see before us. And so I think it's an important highlight because one, it highlights the significance of citizenship. It highlights the importance of civic engagement. And it really highlights the importance of public engagement in a community political process. And by that very nature, it's a democratic process, but also by that very nature, we are going to go slower than a task force. We're going to go slower than a task force that is not bound to a democratic process. That's not bound to the Brown Act, which was an act to ensure inclusion of a democratic process. And so I just want to bring that reminder to all of us as we do our work tonight. While social justice certainly has political overtones, I also believe that there is an element of social justice that is simply a humanitarian right. The challenges and the differences that we saw in the response last night to the right to engage publicly was significant and important to our purpose here tonight. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you for your service. I want to remind you of the significance of this being a public meeting and our duty as citizens to have an open and fair process for yourselves as committee members and for the entire community of Fairfax. And so if you could go to the next slide, please. So a reminder here, and just for our sake of timing, I'm going to read them tonight. In the future, I will ask our group members to read them. At our retreat, that was a public meeting as well, we came up with what are considered relational agreements. These are agreements about how we are going to come together and be in relationship with one another. And so just a quick reminder, I'm going to buzz through these here tonight. And I would like you to all be thinking about who would like to process, observe for these relational agreements. Think about that in advance. So you all agreed to bravery and risk-taking, to being open, to honoring personal accounts, respect, to active listening, to asking questions and not assuming, to ensure each person has the opportunity to speak, share airtime and is heard, that to contextualize this, that people's opinions, feelings are not up for debate, respect and response to triggers. It's okay to make mistakes. Values are not selective, to not yuck the yum, to be reflective and check in on yourself, to welcome somatic reflection, to own your privilege, to bring community along and foster inclusion, and to remember why we are here and why we are the Res J, and the privilege of leisurely activism. If you can go to the next slide. And so for any, as we move to the next slide, for any of the public that was not here, these were agreements that the entire Res J committee agreed to hold during our public meetings. So I'd like to assign our meeting roles. And if we could have a timekeeper tonight, please. And you'll need to say your name. I can't see all of you.
I'm happy to be the timekeeper, Veronica.
Thank you, Veronica. And then we have the wonderful Town of Fairfax staff here to take some action minutes, I believe. So thank you. I'm going to just assign you to that task. And then I will be the facilitator for the majority of the night, with the exception of some particular spots coming up in which our council members will support my facilitation. And then tonight we have a process observation form, and the committee was able to review this form prior to the meeting. And so I would like to show the form to the public. Anne, can you take us please to the Google Doc that has the process observation form? And do I have a Res J member that's willing to, you're going to be trying on the form and the norms for the very first time. Do I have a brave volunteer?
What is this to do, the process observation form?
It is.
I'll do that.
Okay, and who said that?
Liesel.
Liesel, thank you. And again, the form, this is not intended to be a strict and rigid process by any means. Somebody asked for something to help them in the process observation, so I created this. So it's up to each process observer to the extent that you want to use this. So please, by no means feel that it is necessary to be lockstep with this. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to read all of these items. I just read them. These are our norms. Someone at our last meeting had a great idea to keep it simple. And so if you feel that the norm was absolutely held, you'll just yes and a green. If you feel like it was mostly salud, that'll be a yellow. And if you feel like it was not held, that will be a red and a potential probably item for discussion.
And
Does that make sense as a process observer, Liesl?
Yes, and can I keep the note directly in this form, or am I supposed to download it and leave this one by itself on?
I'd recommend just downloading it again. You're welcome to share it at the end, and you're welcome to just use it as a tool for talking points.
Great, thank you.
Okay. And at the bottom, there is a note about a liberatory design process, and I don't want to make it too complicated tonight. So just a note that it's there. Don't worry about that tonight. Are you good? Do you have any questions?
I think that's good.
Okay. So Lisa will be just watching our entire team process and thinking about where we are showing strength as a team in our community agreements, where we might be challenged. She'll also be supporting us throughout the meeting. Process observers kind of have full reign, so for my best word I can think of right now, to remind us of our norms. Please feel free to do that, Liesl. And then also in relationship to our norms, it is also incumbent on all of our ResJ members to hold each other to the norms. And just so a simple reminder, if you feel like somebody's breaking a norm, it's a team effort. And so really, if I as a facilitator just hold you accountable to the norms, it doesn't build your team muscle as much as if you all work together to hold each other accountable. Any questions? Okay, if you could go to the next slide. And in terms of time tonight, because we now have norms that are agreed upon, I'm going to do my facilitation much more tightly. And so I will be stopping people if there's any timed section. I'll check in and, with the group if you want to add time or not add time, but I will be holding people accountable to the allotted time and to the other norms in the context of what you all chose. And I will hope to do that with as much grace as possible. Know that it is not personal, and I'm just working to support you all holding your norms and having an effective meeting. All right, now to the fun stuff. We're going to skip the next couple of slides, please, just in the interest of time.
Where do you want to go?
So skip 3, skip that one. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next one, please. All right. So relational agreements are how, sorry, for some reason it's cut off on the screen, are how we're going to be in relationship with each other. But operational agreements, you all already read about this, but just for the interest of the public here tonight, operational agreements are norms about really how we're going to do procedures and structures. So things like, do you want to have, is it okay to have a cell phone on or off? Is it okay for any team member to be on or off video during the meeting? Is it okay for any team member to, have a computer or video, something other distraction? And those aren't decisions I'll make. Those are decisions that you're going to make. The team received some sample norms. They were not discussed, but in the interest of allowing people to have some thinking time, they were able to think about some operational agreements they might want to offer tonight. And so tonight our goal is to agree on the last part of our norms and have some operational agreements for how we're going to do our work. And so Anne, if you can take us to our operational norms Jamboard. And while she's getting to so this is there's a different Jamboard. Yeah. So each of you will choose 3 of the most significant operational agreements for you. You have access to the Jamboard link. And so we'll watch you add these to your screen. If you have a challenge with the link, you can email Anne or Garrett and they should be able to add your email. They also have the link and they are fellow editors of the document. And you will choose a Post-it, and similar to what we did with the last norms, you will have a Post-it. You'll add 1 norm per Post-it. and start posting up on the screen. And if you could just write your name at the bottom of the post-it in the corner. Each person will get 3 post-its to post. And just as a procedural, if you can be mindful how you lay them out together, just so hopefully the public can be reading each post-it as it's put up. Any questions about that? So you'll have, why don't we start with 7 minutes to get all of the post-its on, since you had some thinking time before. At the end, I'll check in to see if you still need time, and we will have a discussion similar to last time about synthesizing those norms with the goal of distilling into just a handful of norms that we will hopefully decide on tonight. We have about 20 minutes for this entire process.
I'm just wondering,
any
sorry. Where would that have been? Like, when was that emailed? The link to that, sorry.
So I emailed a few weeks ago prior to December break, and then Stephanie emailed out a reminder with
December 21st was your email, Lisa. Sorry to cut you off.
That's okay. And then Stephanie just sent out a reminder email. And Anne, if you could can you just send a quick email with the link if they don't have access to it? Or Garrett?
I just sent one directly to Serena, but you would like me to send one to everyone?
I'm not sure yet. If other people are on, no need.
Veronica?
Yeah, I don't have the
yes?
link either.
that link.
Correct. I'd love to have it.
Who?
Yeah, I don't have it either, or I can't find it.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Great.
Okay.
I have it, but it's not operational agreements. It's like all of our, committee ideas, I guess.
So,
Okay, I'll work on that.
I don't think I'm on the same one. It says choose a few brief words of feedback to share in
No,
each
not the same
category.
one. Okay, so I'm gonna actually stop everybody to just make this a lot quicker. So if Garrett, you could just copy and paste this link and send it out to the team, and then please add the team to the share. You should be able to just cut and paste right there. While Garrett's handling the technical work, everybody should be able to get onto it. It's less important to use the Jamboard than it is to get your ideas down. And as long as we're, verbally sharing those ideas, the public will have access to them. So if you can go ahead and write your 3 operational norms down, just on a piece of paper, and then we will do a round robin share out if we can't access the Jamboard. Just for visual folks, it's a lot easier for the public to see your thoughts that way. Any questions?
I have one. So am I sending them the link to the Jamboard or the Google Doc for the observation?
So let's start with right now with the link to the operational Jamboard.
Okay.
And if you can add I added, I'm not sure what's happening, what I did on my end, but it should all be shared with everyone as well. Because when I sent the link, I shared it.
Okay, I'll see. Well, hopefully
I mean, it's okay too. We can do it verbally and we'll just move on. All right, so timekeeper, if you could give us 5 minutes for everyone to write down their 3 norms.
Starting 5 minutes now.
Thank you so much. And then Anne, while we're doing this, would you be so kind as to make sure that everybody is sharing, it has access to the other Jamboard links? I think probably the easiest way is to you could forward them the email I sent you.
The mission and vision Jamboard, or?
So there'll be, I believe we have 2 other Jamboards. Yes.
Do you want me to send the link of all the different? I have 2 different. I have the brainstorm Jamboard and the operational norms Jamboard.
And a mission vision Jamboard?
That was with Stephanie. That was in a different email.
Yeah, if you could just copy and paste those into one email to the whole team, I think that'd probably be the most efficient.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I'm I don't know if this matters because we're writing it down, but I'm on the Jamboard and I'm view only.
Okay, so go ahead and keep writing while we work on this, just in the interest of time. Thank you. And then while you're writing, Serena, I'm going to go ahead and take a look and see what happened.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. So Anne and Garrett, I made you, you're already editors on the Jamboard. So you shouldn't have a problem adding anyone. But I'm sharing it with you just one more time for simplicity here. And then timekeeper, if you could give us a minute warning. And somebody has their volume on still. We're hearing some background noise.
So I just forwarded all those links to everyone. Hopefully people have received it.
Got it.
People join, so.
Yeah, I'm seeing them up here.
Oh, I see.
Thank you so much.
One minute left, everybody.
I had to request editor access and I don't know that anyone got that. So can I just verbalize so somebody could capture mine? I think that might be quicker.
Well, that's what I'm gonna have people do because I don't, so well, why don't we wait? Let's wait till the timing ends and then we can.
Okay. Okay. It's weird though. I'm not seeing any appear. If anybody.
No, I'm not either, Stephanie.
It's all view only.
Yeah, and it's not, so I'm in it right now and everybody's shared as an editor and there's no, everybody has complete access. I didn't, it shouldn't be in view only. So I'm not sure what setting was triggered, but I don't want to have technology take away from the content and the time of the meeting.
Yeah.
Clearly not helping. It's not helping our purpose right now. So we're gonna go old school and we're just gonna go ahead and vocalize our norms.
And not to be an oddball, but I keep seeing a number of anonymous people jump up on my operational agreement screen.
Oh, that's the feature of the Jamboard. It assigns like random fancy names.
Oh, gotcha. So one of those might be me, for instance.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Our time's up in case that's not clear.
So Anne, Garrett, or any of our ResJ members, do you have access to be able to post anything on this? I'm just curious.
I'm still view only.
No.
And Garrett and Anne, do you have access?
No.
No,
Okay.
I'm view only.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take this off the screen. 'Cause clearly this is not going to happen tonight.
What
And
screen do you want me to share?
nope, we're just going to not share a screen, and we're going to go old fashioned here. And you don't have to close out each window. Yeah, there you go. All right. So Anne, if you could be so kind, or Garrett, to take notes on this, just to make sure that we have a comprehensive list. And then what I'm going to have everybody do is share your 3 norms round robin style. And it'll probably be helpful to write them down as people go, just since we won't have a visual of those norms. And one of the things that we want to do at the end is distill the norms, just like we did last time. Does this alternative work for people? Okay. If it was a lengthier list, we could do a Google Doc, but I think that's just going to take away from our time as well. So let's try this and see how it goes. So why don't we go ahead and have just a volunteer to start us off. And then when you're done, you're going to call on the next person.
Start.
Great. Thank you, Taya.
I couldn't think of very many, but I think one important one is cell phones on silent or off completely. I think that I think it's okay if we don't have our images on, if we let our committee members know that we need to have them off, even for a moment. And a fixed start and end time to our meetings. Who else? Bruce, I saw your hand up.
Yeah.
And Bruce, you'll call on the next person when you're done.
Okay. I thought of 2, and they're kind of related, but kind of coming out of what we're doing tonight. One is for the facilitator, which is that homework would be in moderation. And then for members to try to get used to having some kind of pre-work and try to come in and do it. And this would be subject to our all agreeing that we actually do like the homework idea, but in moderation. Who's next?
I just call on someone to want to just keep it going with the time.
Veronica?
Thanks, Bruce. I second the computer video to remain on throughout the meeting unless communicated otherwise, so that we understand why folks are stepping out. I try to imagine being in a real meeting in person and what it would feel like if somebody just like walked away versus saying, I'm going to step away right now for this reason. And to start and end on time, and to ask for responses in terms of editing documents or homework reviewing or other things before 24 hours ahead of the meeting time. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Who's next? I'm going to ask Alexandra to go next.
So I said start and end the meeting on time. Cell phones or other distractions on silent or just out of sight, and attend the full meeting. I am going to call on Daria.
Thank you. I concur with starting and stopping on time. Respect for confidentiality, respect for each other's voice, and engagement throughout, not ending, I'm rambling, not ending prematurely, staying for the whole meeting unless otherwise stated at the beginning.
And I'm going to stop you just because we're each only doing 3.
Sure.
And if you can call in the next person.
Griselda.
Start and end on time. No cell phones while in meeting. And I like the pre-work idea. Now, or in moderation. The homework. very much in moderation, but it helps me prepare. So I like it.
Can you call on the next person, please?
Stephanie.
I'll just contribute one because I agree with everyone so far. If you cannot make the meeting, please advise the group with as much notice as possible, but just the same day would be great. And that falls under respect, I would think. To no show doesn't feel good for anyone, and leaves us wondering if you're okay. So please let us know if you can't make a meeting.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay, can you call on the next person, please?
Serena.
Okay, so I wrote down mute to avoid talking over others, like just, when someone else is talking, like everyone should be muted. And then I also was thinking about like how this is kind of like this time, like 7 o'clock on a weekday is kind of like when I would consider to be around dinner time. So like, and I don't want to say no food because it's around dinner time, if you're hungry, but being respectful with food, not like making us all look at you eat some like sloppy Joe or something like. And then my last thing, which is kind of ironic because I wrote this on my phone, is no phones. And then who hasn't gone yet? Patrice?
I echo, I think everyone with start and end on time. We all have schedules. I love the no cell phones. I think that we can check out for as long as the meeting takes. And I like the homework in moderation. And I understand that we're not a task force, but I would actually like the homework to be actionable because I'm feeling like it's busy work. No offense, Lisa, but I'd like to do something for the issue at hand and not kumbaya, which is how it feels to me right now. I see dancing, so I guess I'm not crazy.
I'm gonna stop you and just have a stick to the norms. Do you have it? Is that 3? I lost count.
That's 3.
Okay, can you call on the next person, please?
Who hasn't gone? I'm sorry, I don't. Liesel?
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so let me get back to the list out of the thousands of documents I have open. I like the start and end on time. I like the idea that we have pre-work and like that if people like did it and were ready to engage on it. And I do like the idea that if you can't make the meeting, advise the group. 2 things I wanted to say really quickly is the reason I blanked my screen
So
out.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop you just for process. I'm gonna have everybody share and then we'll have an opportunity for discussion.
Okay, right.
This gives I just want a little transparent facilitation right now is that at first I want to give everybody a literal equal chance to offer all of the ideas that you have and not give, and then in terms of equity, transparent facilitation, I want to make sure that we're having the same and open opportunity for everybody to have a conversation, not just one person. So I think we just have, Lisa, you want to call on the next person?
Okay, who hasn't gone yet? Amal.
You're on mute, Amal.
I like the start and end on time, and then cell phones muted, of course. And I really like the idea of the homework, that if there's any brainstorming time, that's done before the meeting so we don't lose meeting time.
Okay, and Amal, you'll call on the next person.
Laylee.
Hi, echoing everybody else. I think the starting and ending on time seems to be a value we all share. And I also put my vote in for a preference for having our video on as much as possible. and actionable-ish pre-work and moderation. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's everybody. Is that correct? I don't want to leave anyone out. All right. So I'm gonna let you know what the resounding votes were, and then we'll have a very short discussion about it. And I have a comment. So there were roughly 8 for start and end on time. That was the highest number. Next were cell phones silent during the meeting. And then we have homework and moderation. And next in line is the no video, video on, pardon me, and advance notice if you need to turn your video off. And then we had, these 3 were tied, my bad. Attend the full meeting. And if you can't make it to a group, say that in advance. And then the other ideas that were not necessarily chosen by other members was that the documents and editing are 24 hours in advance, that mute yourselves to avoid hearing background noise and talking, being respectful, just mindful if you need to eat, not having it be a sloppy Joe type of food, and then to offer opportunities for brainstorming before the meeting. And did I miss any?
I think you got everything.
Okay. So I just want to, before I open discussion up, I just want to say 2 things. In terms of timing on the agenda, we're coming up to our end of our time for this section. And we do need to have some discussion. And so in the interest, you all are part of, I certainly facilitate towards our timeline, but you all are the committee that holds our timeline. So just kind of a mindful moment here in relationship to our timing. And any decisions about timing, I generally leave up to all of you. Do you want to extend the time, give more time? And then that has agenda consequences, just in relationship to you all asking, starting and ending on time. And then lastly, so there's a very, very specific intent about homework. And from a Brown Act perspective, the homework is, so from an equity perspective, the homework is meant to offer an opportunity for ResJ members to think, have a preview and have some thinking time if we're having issues that require background knowledge or thinking time. And that is really to honor all different learning styles. It's to honor disabilities that may need more time for reading, that may need more time with documents and materials. It's designed to also allow for those of us that process different. I personally am not a very good auditory processor. I need, to actually see things. And so we want to make sure that we're just really being mindful. Things move quickly in a meeting. And if you need that thinking time and that process time, it can be really difficult to give everybody a fair opportunity to understand the issues. Other aspect is just practical, right? If we were actually going to read every document here and do that thinking, brainstorming work every single time, our meetings would be extremely long. So in relationship to the Brown Act, it wouldn't be any of our places as agenda. I did not make the decision about homework alone. It's not our place because you're not going to take action outside of a committee meeting. So I just want to be really clear. You're not going to get homework that is ever going to take action because the public doesn't have access to view your meeting. So there would never be an opportunity for homework to have any action taken. Requested. Anything that you would want to make decisions on that you're going to do outside of a meeting needs to happen at the public meeting or subcommittee. And Garrett, did you want to add anything to that with my Brown Act comment in relation to actions?
No, I think that's accurate. You can't send a document out, have everyone comment on it ahead of time. You really have to do it at a meeting. They can give feedback to you directly. You can come up with something, but it can't be an interactive process with the majority.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So what I don't want to do is debate homework. because I think it's going to take you away from, I see your hand, Patrice, from accomplishing your norms. So what I'd like to do as facilitator is have you all speak to, just in an open dialogue, what norms you feel are most important. And then if any of you want to offer an action on norms, we can do that. I think debating the how and why of homework in particular, since it seemed to be the item that had the most differing views, we can work all of that out and discuss it at a, if we have time at the end. Is that okay with people? I just get a thumbs up if that will work for you as a time option. Okay, great. So I'm actually going to see if do any of our youth want to open up comments on norms.
Quick question. Want me to time this conversation?
Woo, thank you. See, I always need some facilitation helpers. Yes, please. So we're at time right now with technical difficulties. So I'm going to recommend 10-minute discussion, but I'm here to facilitate you. So if you feel like that's not accurate, please tell me. Anybody can speak to this. Are you okay with 10 minutes on the clock for this?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Starting.
Thank you. And if you'll do just a minute warning, that's really helpful. So any youth want to start us off?
I can start. So basically, am I just saying like how I feel about the big ideas? Yeah, I like the.
This is sorry, Serena, just to clarify, this is open dialogue. I'm not timing people on the discussion. So it's an open 10-minute discussion.
Okay. Yeah, so I like the idea. I know I didn't say this, but of like starting and ending on time, and I think that's the one we should try to stick to. As well as the keeping the phones on silent. I think there was maybe a bit like there was a lot of different, like people were saying a lot of different things and I kind of all went along that lines, but like if anyone feels really strongly about like something different than like keeping your phone on silent, then I think that should probably be clarified.
Other thoughts?
I didn't comment on homework, but I like it. It helps me focus. And the others seem pretty obvious and good. We need to start and stop on time because we can't go on forever and we need to get things done. And being present and engaged in the room seems to be important to that end.
Alex, I saw your hand up.
Were you talking to me?
Yeah.
I wanted to say something about the cameras. I think it's good to know if someone's going to be gone for an extended period of time, but I personally don't think like we all need to know if someone's just running to the bathroom or needs some water. I think that would take away more than it would add.
Do you have a recommendation?
I mean, I just think like if you're going to be away from the computer for a longer amount of time, like if, I don't know, for whatever reason, if you need to take your dog out and you're like away, then it'd be nice to know so that we're not talking to you when you're not there. But I don't think we need to announce when we're just stepping away for a couple seconds.
Okay, thank you. Liesl, and then Stephanie.
Yeah, I just want to say I turned my computer off because I've been on Zoom meetings for like 5 hours so far today and I haven't had a chance to eat. So kind of trying to balance usually I wouldn't be eating at this time of night, but balancing the needing to eat but not wanting to eat in front of people. So I don't know if we want to deal with that or if that's really that big a deal for other people, but sometimes I'm on meetings for like forever. So just trying to usually I would prefer that everyone's video be on, but yeah. And I couldn't find that there's no chat box, so I couldn't chat to people. Which
I know, yeah.
Stephanie.
Yeah, the challenge is the lack of the chat box, because I actually respectfully disagree with Alexandra. If you're going to be gone for whether it's 2 seconds or 2 minutes, we have no way of knowing if your screen's off and you haven't communicated what it's going to be. And I'm fine with you taking a bio break, but if we're in the middle of an exercise or we're about to transition to an exercise and we need your engagement, and like I feel strongly that it needs to be communicated, I'll be right back, or I'm going to be gone for 15 minutes, or I'm very adamant about communication and having commitments to that. And I'm, like I said, I'm personally fine with, and I have my meal right here that I'm dying to eat. So I totally get it, Liesel. Yeah, I just feel like we need to figure out some mechanism for communication. Maybe we have a buddy system where we text each other, like, I'll be right back or something. I don't know.
I'm not going to say. Go ahead, Serena.
Just to kind of, I guess maybe going off of that whole cameras off thing, I think there's also a difference if your camera's off and you're still there, if your camera's off and you're gone, because like I drink a lot of water when I'm in meetings for some reason. I don't know why, but like I go through water, and like if I get up and get more water, I'm gonna bring my computer with me. I'm just not gonna have my camera on, because then you'd see me like double chin walking into the kitchen. Like it'd be weird. No one wants to see that. So like I would still be here, and like I could still talk, but like you wouldn't see me. And I think there's like a difference between, walking your dog and being there, but your camera's not on.
Okay, Veronica.
Yeah, I'm curious to know if there's a possibility for us to enable the chat for panelists and then to agree that we're only going to be using the chat to explicitly, say I've got to step away, or could you turn your video on because we need to see your hand raised, for instance. Just curious if that's even an option given the restrictions on, I understand why chat's normally not functioning for public meetings. And secondly, just wanted to lift up that sentiment, Alexandra, of the specification of like when I don't have a need, or when I voiced the not having your screens go blank, was mostly to kind of make sure that people are fully present. It's kind of the Zoom way of saying be fully present in my eyes, and that's what the value that I feel is important in it. Even if you need to use a bio break, that's fine, of course, but if you like turning your video off so that you can do other things while you're in the meeting, that it feels like a nice way to keep that in check.
Thank you. I think we have about 4 minutes, 5 more minutes. 3. Woo, look at me, bad timekeeper. Other thoughts?
Yeah, me. I like the idea of, or the commitment of staying through a whole meeting. But when there are times that people cannot, as it happens, sometimes I would rather them attend partially, as long as we know early, before the meeting starts, as long as we're all aware, than not attend at all. So that no one feels guilty, if there's some real life situation that needs attention at that time.
And can I add to also not make people feel bad that if they have to leave for whatever reason, because we don't know what's going on in people's lives.
Any last thoughts?
I mean, maybe, sorry, just like a thought, but if like someone wants to like or needs to leave for like an extended period of time, maybe they could leave the meeting and then rejoin, so we don't have to like ask if they're there to like an off camera. But then if it's like a shorter term thing, or they're like still there behind the camera, they could stay on the meeting.
So just a quick reminder, I mean, norms really are to create a safe space for everybody. I see your hand, Amal. A safe space for everybody to participate kind of with their full self. And I think that if we can be mindful, you all can be mindful and conscientious of what you've heard your fellow committee members need, because part of norms is also all of you saying, hey, this is what I think we need to be doing and what I need in a meeting. And so being mindful, I think in most cases, you know, these things are held with great intention. And so just being very mindful, I think can also be helpful to mitigate some conflict and frustration when these things happen in your meetings. And so just before I call on you, Amal, so you have about 10, 11 items. And in a minute, a question I'll have for all of you, so just front loading for you to have some thinking time, is do you want to keep all of those items that I read earlier, or do you want to work to distill them? So if you're going to work to distill them, then you'll have to make a decision about time right now in your meeting. If you're going to keep them all, you wouldn't. So you can marinate on that for just a second. And Amal?
I was just going to say, I mean, about leaving in the camera. I mean, it could easily just be as simple as what we would do is if we were in a meeting, if somebody had some sort of, you know, sensitive bladder issues and they had to go, we're not going to like embarrass them and make them announce it. They're going to politely get up and go. And you wouldn't just leave a meeting for 20 minutes. So, I mean, it could just be that, like, let people have their privacy and use the bathroom without announcing it to everybody, and just agree maybe not to leave the meeting. If they know they're going to have to ahead of time, then just email it like, sorry guys, I'll be out 20 minutes in the middle of the meeting. Right? Like, just might keep it simple. So we don't like, embarrass people and put people on the spot.
Something we've done in other meetings, I would offer this if it's helpful. If you need to leave, we actually decided on an amount of time, but if you need to leave for a very brief amount of time, a bio break, a glass of water, get a little meal, then that's at your own discretion, and you leave and come back right away, fast as possible. And then if you need to leave for an extended time, the agreement is that you actually would either raise your hand or let the group know, I have extenuating circumstances, I need to leave the meeting, and give an estimated time. What it avoids, I see your hand, Patrice, what it avoids is that we're interrupting all the time in the course of the meeting just to get water. That's not very purposeful and it can really quickly derail a meeting. But that if you do, it resolves the issue that if you need to leave for an extended period of time, we wouldn't be here waiting and wondering, are you okay? What's happening? So that's just an offering of what's worked in other meetings. And then I think we're at time for this section. So Veronica and what?
That was it. I was going to say we're at time.
Perfect. Okay. So I see your hand, Patrice, and what I'm going to ask is, can you hold that so that we could make a decision about whether or not to extend our time?
Yeah, we sure can, but you've done that to me twice now. So if we're going to be inclusive, we should be inclusive.
Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and make the call that I'm going to ask for an extension. We can extend just to respect the process. I really hear what you're saying, Patrice, and I really respect what you're saying. I'm always striving for a balance with timing and inclusion. So thank you for taking note of that. So I'd like to ask the team right now, just in terms of an agenda, we can take one last comment and then go ahead and move on to section C, committee development, or we could, and you need to make a decision about how you'd like to handle your norms. And so I'm throwing that back to you.
I think we should just take one more comment and move on.
Yeah, we have a really tight agenda, but I do want to hear what Patrice has to say.
Okay.
I just don't understand why we can't have a set break. Every other council committee meeting in Fairfax tends to do that. You get 5 minutes. You go to the restroom, you get your water, everyone is off screen for the same amount of time. I don't think that anyone on this committee is taking it so lightly that we're going to go walk our dogs, but we do have needs. Perhaps, an hour in, an hour and a half in, just something that's pretty standard, so we know that we're not sitting here with dry mouths. We can get water in 20 minutes.
Okay. So what do folks think of that recommendation?
It could be put on the agenda as a 5-minute break even.
May I comment?
Yep.
So I like the idea of just being treated like adults, and that if we need to get up, we'll go and come back quickly, because my bladder may not cooperate with a 5-minute break halfway through. And I wouldn't expect anybody to hold it just till the break. So, and I feel good about all the other recommendations and feel ready to move on.
Okay. So in terms of next steps, there's 2 next steps that I see, and I'm happy to hear other ideas about next steps. So one, I do think because we have a differing opinion about breaks, I do want to honor that 2 different ideas were recommended, and I do think a decision should be made. What your norm, the other norms, there wasn't really a differing opinion about. This is a particular norm that there was a very different opinion about. So I don't know, you're welcome to decide how you'd like to handle that. You could make an official vote. We could do a thumb vote. It's not necessarily an action item that merits an official vote, but I do want to be respectful that there's a very different opinion around this issue right now. And so
I'll make a suggestion for a thumb vote.
Okay, so does a thumb vote work for everybody? Does everybody feel like that's good enough? Okay, so I'm going to create A and B choice. A is just, I've got to write it down to make sure I don't forget, is a break on your own as needed. And B is an agenda break. So we formally put a break time in the agenda. So if you would just like to have breaks on your own, at your own discretion, being mindful of the purpose of our group and everything that everybody said here today, just give a thumbs up, please. And just give me a second. Okay, so can someone second count that? Keep your thumbs up. I just want a second count. I have 8.
I have 8.
Great, okay. And if you would like to have a break on our agenda, please raise a thumb. I know I can subtract, but I just want the official record. So in a second counter, do I have 4 or 3 thumbs? 3?
Sorry, I screwed up. I didn't vote.
Okay, so let's finish. Hold on.
Preference. I didn't vote either. Sorry.
Okay, so let's finish this vote because I want to keep it super clean. We voted 8, break on our own. And now we're going to vote. You would like a yes, thumbs up means you would like a break on our agenda officially. And if you could just keep your thumb up and keep it up. Okay, I see 2 thumbs for a break on our agenda. I'm correct. And you don't have to vote. So anybody who didn't vote, would you like to place your vote? No. Okay, so we will take breaks on our own at your own discretion throughout the meeting as needed, just being mindful to stay in the room as long as possible. And can I get a thumb that we can all move forward and live with that? Just takes me a minute to scan. Okay, thank you so much. So the next decision that needs to be made is, would you like to keep the norms? Last time we kept the norms, we lived with them for a little while, and then you officially voted on them. So would you like to do that again? We'd keep all 11, live with them, and vote. So I see 7, 8, 9. I have 9. Okay. Yes, Daria.
I just want to comment that that's fine, and I feel prepared to vote right now. I don't know if anyone else does, but that didn't come up as an option.
And that's up to you as a committee. And so this is where I would just remind everybody that we have an agenda. If you want to start and end on time, the decisions that you make have consequences for that starting and ending on time. But as facilitator, I'm not going to instruct you what to do. I'm here to facilitate your team process to decide. So
in the interest of expediting the process, I can hang with that and live with them.
okay, and so there's no motions for anything different. Okay, it looks like we are good to move on to the next section. Yes. All right. I will move. I hear no objections. I will move us on now. So we're going to go to section C. And this is your time to revisit the focus areas that you all chose on your Jamboard, what seems like now very, very long ago. And the intent of this portion was to offer an opportunity for you all to revisit the focus areas and take action if you would like to create any subcommittees that would start around these focus areas. It is a voting item if you're going to create a subcommittee, and so we would take public comment before that action happens. Anne, if you could, there's a document that says ResJ focus areas, and if you could share the screen so that we can have everybody viewing that.
Oh, sorry.
It's no problem. There's a lot of docs. You're almost there. Left to the left. To the left, to the left.
Where is it? Mission and vision?
Nope, you were right there a minute ago. Go to your right. One more. One more. Click. Okay, and then if you could scroll up and let's see. So for the public to know, this happened if you weren't at a meeting, prior meeting. This was created by your ResJ committee. They worked with the Jamboard and had an opportunity to give their thoughts and ideas about focus areas for the work based on the purpose of the ResJ as set forth by the Fairfax Town Council. And then we grouped these items, these topics we grouped the ideas into different topic areas and included a bulleted list of the related components of those topics. And so I put together this document, but it is not my content. It is your ResJ committee's content. And then the ResJ was able to preview this document so that they had some thinking time before this item C in our meeting tonight. So I'm going to recommend that we reduce the 40 minutes to 30 minutes and then do a time check and see if we need to extend the time. Does that work for everybody? And again, I'm scrolling on my screen. I can't actually see you all at the same time. So what I'm going to ask is that if it doesn't work for anybody, that you just raise a hand and speak up so that I can know that. Okay, so timekeeper, I'm not seeing any objections to that. So timekeeper, if you could put 30 minutes in general for this section, and then we'll probably have to time a couple other spots for it. So Anne, if you could just go to the top. Okay, and we're just going to scroll down. So the focus areas and then the items in the focus areas, if you could just stay on each spot for about 30 seconds for the public to view. Is one focus area. We'll do the two at the same time in those 30 seconds. So one area was education, and I'm not going to read every bullet unless there's a request to do so. Oh, Anne, can you leave it on? Yeah, right there. Perfect. So we'll do 30 seconds on that, Veronica, and engagement. So education and engagement, and then these are what the committee members suggested for topics and content in that focus area.
I'm sorry, what does the check indicate?
that there is more than one
More than one what?
of the exact same Post-it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm very careful. I don't ever change language on this process. So unless the wording was exactly the same, it's represented again. So in this case,
Oh,
there.
sorry. That says it at the top. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
Okay.
It's okay. So there were 2 exact Post-its that said microaggressions. Okay, so can you scroll please to the next 2 if they fit? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So the next was to develop resources. And then we'll do these 3 at the same time. So if you could give us 45 seconds, Veronica. So develop resources, housing, and then ResJ members, if you'll also just preview those bullets, and town policy. And then those were the content of the focus areas and the bullets next to them.
"45 seconds, is that?"
Thanks. And then if you could scroll, Anne. Okay, and this is a little bit shorter, so we'll do 45 for this too. I think it's probably better. So town policy, policing and safety, workforce, economy, coalition, and there were some miscellaneous ideas that were not placed by the team into a category. And then as you're reading this, I would encourage you, so I'm going to imagine we would be selective about a priority of any committees that would like to be created tonight due to timing, just timing for our agenda. So you might want to be thinking about any priorities you might have.
That's time.
Thank you. And then if you could take us back to the full screen. So all ResJ members should have access to this document if you need to refer to it. And then Anne, if you'll take us out of a share screen and bring us all back together. And just keep that page handy. We might need to pop over to it. So this is time for you to bring forward any discussion or ideas, recommendations, actions. If you'd like to discuss any of the committees or recommend starting a subcommittee. And we have, I believe probably now we have roughly 20 minutes for this section, and we'll need to include public comment if anybody wants to make a motion.
For clarity, is this the police subcommittee is going to be on the agenda after this? So we're not discussing ones that have already been formed. This is for creation of new subcommittees.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
And then Patrice, I just wanted to offer you first opportunity. I really appreciate your comment last time, and I want to offer you first opportunity if you'd like to.
I don't have a comment at this point.
Okay.
I have a suggestion, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the screen. So there's a limited number of us to focus on all of this, and it's all extremely important work, obviously. So here's an idea. I'm wondering if education and engagement is consolidated as a subcommittee. They're distinct bodies of work, but there is overlap. There's overlap in some of the skill sets needed and some of the in some of the work as well. And then if you scroll down, okay, stop. What? Wait. I think, wait, go down just a touch. No, above housing. Develop resources, I think, you know, there's developing programs in there. And then if you scroll beyond that, beneath, keep going to the bottom. I even think, you know, the coalition and workforce economy, some of that work I think could be included in the engagement education. So, I mean, that would be a very meaty subcommittee. So that could be one. And then I would put forth housing and policing as two other distinct ones, perhaps. That would be a recommendation. And then we would have 4 distinct subcommittees: education, engagement, town policy, housing, and police practice. I mean, there's what, 12 of us right now. We're going to talk about adding the 2 folks that we lost, but I'm a little worried about, you know, standing up 7 subcommittees. So I'll stop talking. Interested in hearing people's thoughts.
One way to think about it is in terms of priorities. Just because you choose something tonight doesn't mean you're not choosing other things later, right? So tonight is just, Bruce, Stephanie, and I did the agenda planning as they did it with me as co-chairs. And we also took input at the retreat. So just, this was an opportunity to move forward some subcommittees and give space to do so, but it really doesn't mean this is the last chance, just to kind of make note of that. Amal.
Something I'm just curious about, because I'm seeing bits of it in a lot of different areas. I think everybody is learning about how economics is central to racism. It's central because of all that was thefted, and reparations are so much of what is being called for, and reparations can be done in so many different ways. And I think there's so much focus on housing, and housing is absolutely necessary. But while we were working on the mission and vision, I spoke to a lot of people in our community in the East Bay, and there was a lot of call, not just for housing, but for raising up economic mobility through supporting like grants for Black businesses, things like this. So when I'm thinking of housing and I'm seeing little things about economics, I'm like wondering, should there be a subcommittee that focuses on economic mobility? Because when we say diversity, this, none of it can be spoken about until either you allow accessibility and you stop preventing power through owning businesses. Maybe there's a grant program in Fairfax granted to somebody who wants to start a business. That, you know, I know as we were discussing this with the mission and vision statement, we can't like force shop owners like this is now going to be, but we could offer grants for startup businesses or entrepreneurship, or we could put that in a budget. So maybe there needs to be, because this is really the gateway. This is what was thefted, and this is what has been continually robbed. And this is what a big part of the lasting impact of systemic racism is economics. And it's, people don't want to be under everybody's, white people's thumb forever with affordable housing. They want a way to rise up and be economically sufficient, you know? So, I mean, while I totally support affordable housing, I'm also thinking like other ways so that there's access to power and access to mobility. So maybe that needs its own subcommittee.
Liesl and then Serena.
Yeah, I largely agree. I mean, I have to say that the economic opportunity piece is related both to jobs and businesses and to housing. And, you know, my concern always is that we'll adopt a whole lot of things that seem to be somewhat symbolic without actually creating a space where people can be in Fairfax in greater numbers. So I would really like to not remove the economic opportunity, mobility, workforce piece, whether it's, you know, helping people start businesses or survive here as workers from the agenda, because I think that's really important. That's actually where a lot of the diversity in our town comes in, is from our workforce. So that's really important to me. The second thing is that, you know, some of these things where we say develop resources, almost the developing resources can grow out of all the other work that we do. So for instance, if you're going to establish a resource for people who you know, experience racism by exclusion from renting, housing, et cetera. You know, some of these things might be part of some of these other committees that we form. And that's it, sorry.
I wasn't sure if you were having thank you time. So Serena and then Stephanie.
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree with the idea to kind of condense some of it. I also agree with the having the separate economic committee, but I was also kind of just wondering, like in terms of subcommittees, would we be like, if someone raised the motion to create a subcommittee, would we be deciding who was in it tonight? Because if we decide to fill those spots, couldn't the numbers be different?
So that is, I'm here to facilitate any process you all want. So if you really feel like it's important to both stand up the committee and decide on the membership, and then just, I want to make note of the consequences. So if all you do is decide to stand up the committee, kind of stand up on it, I'm like, if you decide to stand it up, you will have to wait until the next meeting, and correct me if I'm not understanding the process right, to be able to actually engage in the committee itself. And if you stand it up and you vote on your members, then you can start your work right away to the point of the action requests. And that was I believe that was the intent of this time. Serena, were you finished?
I guess like, and there's no way we could make the decision if we want to add more people before we do that? Or, because like, I like the idea of getting action done, but also like, we need to know how many people are going to be here.
Can you clarify your comment? What do you mean? How many people are going to be where?
Like how many people are going to be on this committee so that we can have like an appropriate number on the subcommittees?
So go ahead, Stephanie.
So that is on the agenda, and hypothetically, if we decide tonight that we do want to proceed with adding or replacing, if you will, our two members who have left, it's gonna take some time to do that. So you just want to be of the mindset that we are going to have two more bodies, if you will, to support the work. Is that what you're saying? But we won't know who they are, and they won't be able to raise their hand and say, I want, you know, housing, or, you know. So I don't know how meaningful it will be if we do choose to populate the subcommittees tonight, if that makes sense. Do you want to keep talking, Serena? Because I wanted to chime in really quickly to what Liesl and
Yeah, I guess if I could ask another clarifying question, if hypothetically, like if we decided to add the two more people, but we also voted on like who was going to be in the subcommittees tonight, could they join later if they wanted to, or that's closed off?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Then
just to make note.
Sorry.
No, I'd rather you speak. Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Amal for raising that economic topic. I wholeheartedly agree. And I also wanted to make sure the group knows that the town actually has an affordable housing committee that Liesl sits on. And so maybe that's something we do put on the back burner. We think about how we maybe liaison and not necessarily have a subcommittee, but maybe we provide, I don't know, we can think that through a little bit, but I have been wondering myself, what is our distinct, you know, role from the Affordable Housing Committee that the town already has? Ours being Res J, and then back to the economic mobility, Amal, the town policy in my mind, and I think we documented, I don't have the sheet in front of me, but I thought we, that was always my intent anyway, is to both, you know, fix, if you will, racist policies, or, you know, correct whatever it is in existing town policy, but also create new policy that builds equity and diversity. And with that, that could be economic, you know, grant programs or what have you. So maybe we brought in the policy one to be, you know, economic and something like that, like rename it to have more of a broader focus. If the group likes that idea.
Patrice, and then Veronica, I see your hand.
Yeah, to echo Stephanie's point, I think that there are many opportunities for us to bundle all of these committees, or else we're just going to be drowned in committees. I think that a lot of these ideas touch each other. I also just want to give a reality check. We have less than 1% of a Black community. If we're doing business grants, I think we're getting way ahead of ourselves. Like, I think that we need to root ourselves in reality, start with the problems, and then build from there. And I know that, Garrett, you're saying being actionable goes against the Brown Act. I vehemently disagree. I think that we need to level set on what we mean by action. Action can be next steps for committees. We don't have to make decisions. We just have to move forward. And I'm sorry if I sound frustrated, but I really am, especially being part of less than 1% of this community and seeing no one represent me on this screen. Guys, we have to start small. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Thank you. Veronica, time check?
Yeah, I wanted to both give you a time check, folks, that we have a little bit under 11 minutes. And in that vein, feel, although I am so grateful, Patrice, and feel a lot of that fire of wanting to be taking action that makes impact for Black community members.
I want to make it for all community members. I don't just want to make it for Black community members. And I think that's where my frustration is starting. I can already see this community kind of going off the rails. And I'm sorry, guys. I'm just being honest and transparent.
And I feel like, although I appreciate the idea of getting action started within our subcommittees a lot, and so for that reason, as you mentioned, Serena, kind of picking who's on the subcommittees tonight, I do think in the interest of time that it might be more practical for us to establish what the subcommittees are, and then to have that to sit with as committee members before our next month's meeting to be able to say, what committees do I see myself, what subcommittees do I see myself on? And that we'll get through the agenda tonight as well. So that would be my recommendation, that we just choose the subcommittees and then get to choose who goes on those subcommittees at the next meeting.
I second that.
So Liesl and then Daria.
Okay, just quickly, I think we want to keep on the table the concept of economic mobility, which could include housing, partially because I'm not just talking about business loans, although I like that idea. But, you know, we should be talking about the economic reality of people who work in town, who cannot live in town, and what their needs are as workers. And, you know, we often talking about we're wanting to serve the residents of Fairfax. Well, the residents of Fairfax, as we know, are primarily white. So there are people who could be residents if the situation was different, or who contribute to our community but cannot live here, who still deserve to have some attention paid to them. So that's why I continue to focus on that. And then, as Stephanie said, we do have an affordable housing committee that's met once in the last 2 years, I think, until today. And I don't know how much more we will be meeting, but having a specific, at least a little bit of a focus on the racial equity aspects of housing, I think would continue to be useful. Although I agree with Stephanie, we're going to have to continue to explore what happens with our affordable housing committee as we move into a more active period. But I really want to just keep that racial equity focus on that very key aspect of being able to live in and participate in our community. So that's all.
Thank you, Daria. And then did I miss Griselda? Did I miss your virtual hand? No, okay.
I just wanted to comment that I think it's important that we do look at bundling some of the issues. It makes a lot of sense to me. And to remind us, I guess, that none of what we do tonight is necessarily written in concrete. You know, as we develop and morph, we can make changes. But tonight, if we establish some basics, we can move on and go from there.
So just a couple of reminders. This was a brainstorm. right. There is no action taken on any of the focus areas. It was your best thinking about what you see as the needs of your community. So I think the idea, I love the word bundling. I think that's a great idea. I think you're going to find that when you go into your committees, your subcommittees, you're going to be discussing the work of that subcommittee. And so the focus area document is not meant to be written in stone. It's meant to be transparent thinking for all of you and for the community, and as a starting place, and to take into consideration the different content areas people want considered in your committee, in your subcommittee. But it's definitely not written in stone, and the subcommittees will form to decide the very nature of their work, taking into consideration the voice of all of your colleagues on the Res J, if that makes sense. And then just in terms of the action portion, I think that you could do any combination tonight. And so you could vote on the committees, or the subcommittees, you could vote on them and decide to form one and not all the others to think about the rest. So and I say that because part of my role is to listen to all voices on this committee, and I can take feedback, one by one, and our council people can take that feedback. And so when we create agendas, we are super, super mindful that we are holding an agenda for this entire group. And so we really heard there was urgency to form a committee that could get started immediately in January. And so I just want to bring that forth because I heard that from multiple people. And then just the last thing before we run out of time and make some decisions here is that there's a number of folks we have barely heard from tonight. And so I want to take note of that, and I want to offer them time. I don't want to call anybody out, but I do want to offer time that if you have not spoken tonight, to offer you some time right now to take the floor.
Can you cut down the yelling, because I can't figure out my mute?
So is there anybody who has not spoken tonight that would like to take some time right now? And I'm going to ask that we all just give a 30-second wait time, please. So there's nobody that would like to speak up that hasn't spoken yet. Okay. So I believe I'm going to get, how many minutes do we have left, Timekeeper?
4 minutes.
4 minutes. All right. So you all have to figure out what your next steps are. So if we're going to take any motions, we need to have public comment prior to the motion. Is that correct, Garrett? The wizard behind the curtain.
Yes, that's that. Oops, can't. Sorry, it's not working. Okay, yes. So they could choose to form subcommittees. Probably before you take public comment, you might want to just get an idea of which committees people are thinking they like to form, and then open it up for public comment.
Thank you. Patrice.
Can we decide what we're bundling before we decide on subcommittees so that they're relevant and we don't have to do this again?
If that feels important, you certainly could open that up to the team.
I thought I was. I'm sorry if I'm not following protocol, but everyone, if we're thinking of bundling things, I think that we'll have a better idea of what subcommittees we'll need. So perhaps we could start with that as our step one before we go off into subcommittees and then bundle afterwards. It just, to me, it doesn't seem very logical.
Daria.
I'm just going to say that Stephanie made some great suggestions. We could start there if anybody has agreement or an alternate suggestion.
Veronica.
Combining some of Stephanie's suggestions with some of the options that you outlined for us, Lisa, I wonder if you had mentioned, Stephanie, combining the education and engagement because there's so many overlaps, and as in terms of what's a priority, there's more action or bullets within those two focus areas, and if we were to combine them into one, there's more bullets within that than any of the other sections in terms of what feels like the most, it came up the most for us during this. And wonder if it wouldn't make sense to create a subcommittee tonight, to establish that subcommittee, and then have members, we decided later, but just start with that one subcommittee of education and engagement.
I can't mute and hear. So I either have to mute and not let them.
Can I make a suggestion as well? I'm in favor of standing that committee up, and I don't see the harm in standing up the policy one as well. Not to say that we have, these committees have to be populated and start meeting tomorrow, but you know, to everyone wants to feel like action is happening, and you know, we already have agenda items for the next couple of meetings. Like, we have so much work to do. So the more that we can get accomplished, you know, like, let's just get it done. You know, it's not to say that we have to start.
So are there committees that, to Garrett's point, and just to move us along a little, are there committees that anybody on the team feels like you want to stand up and make a recommendation? And perhaps your recommendation, to Patrice's point, is bundling, and you have a recommendation on how to do that. What I'm trying to do is get a sense of what your recommendations might be for committees, as Garrett recommended, and then we'd open it up to public comment, and then we would bring it back for people to make motions, if I'm catching the process correctly, Garrett. So anybody want to make a, just, and this is not the motion part, just what you would want to stand up, Serena?
Okay, so I think kind of going off of Stephanie's ideas, there was like the educate, and this is bundling, I guess, but the ideas for like committees, or like a bundle of education and engagement, and then a bundle with like town policies that kind of would also have economic policies within it. And then is there more? I definitely remember those two, but.
Thanks, Veronica. That's a perfect signal. Other thoughts? Bruce.
You're muted, Bruce.
You're muted.
Sorry. I like the direction that this is going. The bundling idea, starting with Stephanie's suggestion, is very helpful. I think education and engagement is a pretty clear committee to consider getting going, because it's the part that's outward facing toward the community. And I sort of see the work of the ResJ as being both to make for town policy, but also to talk to the community. And so that would be that. We already have the policing practice subcommittee, which we'll be discussing in a minute. the housing, to Lisa's point, we might want to think a bit about how the Affordable Housing Committee where it's going and how we might interact with it. And so maybe we hold off on that one. And so that would only leave the policy committee, I think, if I'm getting it right, Stephanie, those 4 that you were suggesting as a bundle. I would be happy with just standing up the Education and Engagement Committee tonight and just taking it one at a time, because we've got a lot going on, but that's just my thought. That's it.
So, and based on those comments, does anybody feel like they'll want to make a motion to do that? And then to Garrett's point, we'll open it up to public comment.
I motion to do exactly what Bruce just said.
Okay. Any other subcommittees that anybody feels like they might make a motion to stand up tonight so that the public can comment properly?
I'm not sure if we're, sorry.
Tayo?
I think policy is an important one to stand up, because I think that's getting at the root of the actual policies that are in the town. So that's what I would propose.
Okay.
And the education and engagement, but I think policy needs to be there as well.
Okay. And we are at time for this section, just as a note, but we need to finish the process, but just for people to know. Liesl and Daria.
So are we taking out the whole economic mobility section as a committee or bundling it into something else?
Bundling it into policy. It's town policy and economic programs.
Okay.
Right. That was my comment.
Sorry. I should have raised my hand. I
No,
apologize.
no.
And that's my
just-
bad. I should have been mindful of that. Veronica, yes.
Just repeating that we're at time, and if we want to take public comment and folks want to say what they do, that we're really running into not getting to the rest of our agenda and ending on time at this moment.
We are. So are those all the recommendations for potential subcommittees you would want to stand up? Okay, and so I do hear that people will want to make motions, and so we'll need to take public comment next. And so just one note on timing on agenda. It's fluid because this is really what you should consider. This is a living agenda. And so we plan, the 2.5 hours, we plan 2 hours of content and then a half-hour public comment, but it's a living agenda. So depending on the needs of the committee, it's always going to shift and change. So the idea when I give you time is that I'm just recognizing the process in our agenda, but I want to make it really clear that the decision of timing is up to you all as a team with where you feel like you need to dedicate your time, and it's most important. So Garrett, do you want to go ahead and open it up for public comment now? And then I cannot see hands, so we'll have
Yeah, so Anne, you want to ask if they have any virtual hands?
Yeah, I don't see any in the attendees, so there's no hands.
Okay, so we will close. I believe, Bruce, that I have to say we're officially closing public comment. Yes.
Yeah.
You're on mute, Bruce.
I'm not anymore. Yes, that's the correct thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
I have
you.
my little list. I have my list of what not to forget based on what everybody tells me.
Yeah.
All right, so public comment is officially closed, and we can open it up if anybody would like to make motion. Veronica.
I make a motion to establish an education and engagement subcommittee.
I second that.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please, Anne?
Yes. Alexandra,
Yes.
Amal,
Yes.
Daria,
Aye.
Griselda,
Yes.
Laylee,
Yes.
Liesl,
Yes.
Patrice,
Aye.
Serena,
Aye.
Tayu,
Aye.
Veronica,
Aye.
Bruce,
Yes.
Stephanie.
Yes. And I make a motion to stand up
Okay, wait, wait. It's official. Whoa. It's officially approved. We currently now have an education and engagement subcommittee. And before we stand up another one, do you want to make a motion of do you want to, sorry, not make a motion. Do you want to decide on subcommittee members tonight so that can start, or table that till next time?
I would like to vote to table.
Okay, soft vote. We're soft voting here. Okay, table. All right, Stephanie.
I'd like to make a motion to stand up a town policy subcommittee, which is inclusive of economic mobility programs designed to uplift, well, with economic mobility programs.
I second it.
Okay, a roll call, please.
Alexandra,
Yes.
Amal,
Yes.
Daria,
Aye.
Griselda,
Yes.
Laylee,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Patrice,
Aye.
Serena,
Aye.
Tayu,
Aye.
Veronica,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Stephanie.
Aye.
I raise a question really quickly for Garrett, I think. So Garrett,
Did everybody vote?
Yeah.
Okay, so
you passed.
but just before the question process wise, everybody voted yes for the subcommittee? Okay, sorry, I was doing an agenda check. Okay, so you formally stood up a policy and economic mobility subcommittee. I think y'all should take a moment and acknowledge that action was taken tonight. All right, Bruce.
So Garrett, the police practices subcommittee was specifically, according to the council, it was specifically part of forming the ResJ, and it was specifically going to be a public subcommittee. So the meetings would be public, which isn't always the case with subcommittees. So do these two subcommittees, I guess it's a question for you if there's any requirements, and then for the group as to whether these two subcommittees would be public subcommittees, public meetings, or not necessarily public meetings. For example, on the Climate Action Committee, we have quite a few subcommittees, but they don't meet publicly, and they don't have to notice their agendas, but they don't take action. All they do is come back to the committee as a whole with recommendations. So the committees are just sort of working groups that help the full committee get more done.
I guess to answer your question, I would consider these two subcommittees ad hoc subcommittees, and any recommendations they have would come back to your entire ResJ committee for consideration and discussion. So I would say no. That being said, it's up to the subcommittee or actually the ResJ if you wanted to make them. I will say that will be a lot more work for someone.
Yeah, that's what I would lean toward too. Just to say, yeah, it works well with the CAC to have these committees that can meet more quickly and less formally. But that also reminds us that they would need to be less than a quorum of the full ResJ, which right now is only those of us who are here, not including the people that we have yet to decide if we can replace. So just the people who are currently on the ResJ, less than a quorum of that.
In any case, it can't be more than 6 members because you have 13 voting members, even though you only have 12 right now. So it couldn't be more than 6 for any subcommittee. But that'll be next meeting. You'll decide. You might only have 4 or 5 or 3 or whatever on a committee.
Okay, thank you. Ready to move on?
So does anybody want to stand up another committee before we close this out? No. Wait time. All right. So I'm going to close out this section. Congratulations. I do think you should take a moment of applaud yourselves, pat yourselves on the back. since we can't virtually high five. Well, we can virtually high five. We can't high five in person or pound, whatever your preference is on the salutation there. And then I do want to make note on a positive, I'm going to keep it positive here, is that we actually are on time with our agenda. We're at 9 o'clock and we're about 25 minutes for subcommittee reports. And an item E, we didn't give it a lot of time for that, but I think it'll be about 5 minutes, depending on public comment, and then we'll wrap up the next meeting at the closing. So we'll just be a little bit over. So thank you to everybody who was mindful of that. All right, I'd like to open up section D, subcommittee reports. So our first item is to discuss the policing subcommittee upcoming meeting, potential interest in having a facilitator, and then we will move on to a report from the ad hoc mission and vision committee.
With that,
Patrice, and then Daria and Bruce, was that?
I think as long as the team aligns on an agenda, a facilitator is not necessary, but that's one woman's opinion.
Bruce, do you want to kind of give some background and lead this discussion?
Yeah. So we have the question has come up of whether we should have a facilitator for this subcommittee.
So Bruce, sorry, I'm gonna actually, I want to just formally recuse myself from this conversation. I'd like it to be neutral, and since I am the facilitator, I don't think it's appropriate for me to facilitate a conversation about a facilitator. So I'm just gonna, it's a public meeting, so I'm not gonna leave, but I am gonna just sit back and have you take over this section.
So just really quickly, that's kind of the question that we wanted to, and as far as the report, a doodle poll is, I don't think it's gone out yet, Anne, but it should go out soon. Is that correct? We've talked about the.
Yeah, I was waiting to see tonight what you wanted me to do with that, but I'll do a doodle poll from Sunday till for the next week. Evenings, I guess, is.
So that's the subcommittee should be meeting pretty soon after this, after we see the results of the doodle poll. But the question would be whether we might want to have a facilitator for maybe the first couple of meetings just to help us get going or not. And if we were to have that facilitator, one certainly very likely choice might be Lisa. However, this needs to be brought before this whole committee because this committee has decided we have a certain budget. Essentially, we have some money to work with from the town, but we need to be careful of how we spend it because we have other things that we might want to do with it. And so that's where we want to think about whether we want to have a facilitator for this subcommittee, because it's a public meeting. It's kind of a high profile question. And so that's the question. I don't know exactly how to approach that question here, but that's the question I'd like to ask. Veronica.
Thanks, Bruce. I want to express that we have not met as a subcommittee, if that isn't clear. So as these are getting suggested, as far as I know, these are only Bruce's suggestions in terms of the idea of having a facilitator, unless there was communication with other subcommittee members that I'm not aware of. And just to raise a couple of concerns that I have from our last meeting up until this point, that the subcommittee, the Police Practices and Public Safety Alternative Subcommittee was formed, and I didn't receive, nor did any of the subcommittee members receive any information about it. I was assuming that, Bruce, you were going to take the lead on sending out an email about a doodle poll or anything, and had reached out to you a few days after our retreat to get that momentum going, because this, to be fair, is one of the most vital reasons that our town asked for the ResJ committee to be formed. There was a lot of outcry around the need for more, a lot of work in terms of how to make sure that folks in our community, particularly folks of color within our community, can feel safe and met within the policing system. So I feel very frustrated that it's been now a month since it was formed and we're still talking about sending out a doodle poll. And so want to name that as a concern. And then secondly, when the council members were being allocated to the Res J committee, Mayor Goddard at the time, former Mayor Goddard, and now as you are the mayor, she had reflected that she felt like it was not necessarily her place to be on this committee as a mayor, particularly within this policing subcommittee, because of the way that a mayor's presence might feel intimidating for members of the community to be able to engage in that, in the conversation that is can be very controversial or challenging. And also because of the role that a mayor plays in engaging as a liaison with the police force from the town council. And so I want to raise the question of whether or not it might be a good idea to consider having you, since you now are the mayor, stepping back from the policing subcommittee. And then want to just raise the question of whether or not it feels like you still want to be on the Res J committee at large, knowing that I feel concerned about why there was no momentum around the subcommittee. I'm going to stop talking now.
Well, thank you. It sounds like I should respond to that rather than just continuing around the circle. So I'll try to. As far as the timing, the main thing that was a factor for me was just the holidays, or the winter period, whatever we wish to think of it as, depending on our own habits. But it seems like a lot of people sort of take a break at this time of the year in one way or another. And also the town kind of shuts down. Town staff was all on furlough. Town hall was closed down. And so it seemed like to me that it made sense to get this going in early January. And then the question came up, and it actually wasn't just my idea. It was something that came up through staff as well. Just the question, do we want to have a facilitator for this committee? And then it seemed like, well, if that seems like a valid question, there's certainly an argument for possibly doing that, but it should go through this committee. And so since we were meeting tonight, the 7th, that's where the timing came from, is okay, let this committee, in the interest of us in this full Res J, be able to think about how we budget things, and about the subcommittee, that the Res J should think about that question and advise as to whether we should have a facilitator. So the idea is to do the doodle poll immediately after this meeting and be able to get going. But that's the reason for the timing, and I apologize for that, but that's what that's how I saw it, was not to try to do it in late December, just because it's a time when not everybody would be equally able to participate in it, and when staff is absent. But the other thing you asked about, my role being mayor, we do rotate being the mayor on town council. So currently Stephanie is now vice mayor, and presumably would be mayor next year. And so would that mean that next year we would change who was on subcommittees? I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. So that's a new thought to me. And maybe if anybody else has any thoughts about that, I'd be interested in hearing them. I don't want to be on the committee if people don't think that that's appropriate. But I don't see myself a big conflict, but it's the mayor basically works with, there are a few roles that the mayor has that are beyond what council members have, but not that many roles. The mayor in our town's form of government doesn't have a lot of special powers, at least not that I've found yet. Okay, I'll stop talking. Garrett?
Oops, mute button disorder. I would never comment unless asked. I think it's important on this related to the facilitator because that actually was a staff idea for the committee. And the reason for that is I actually agree with you, Veronica. I believe whatever this PD subcommittee comes up with is actually going to create a more robust discussion in the community, in the council, have possible impacts. Couldn't tell you because I don't know what's going to come up with, but I assume there'd be questions related to costs, operations, and so on. And I thought it was really important that there has to be a neutral third party to facilitate the discussion. So that shouldn't be the mayor, because you're right, the mayor is a policy person. And if the mayor's facilitating, he or she couldn't really participate at the level they should, and they would impart their perspectives on things. And that's not really what you want if you really want to, I think, to do this properly. And it can't be staff, because as staff, there's perceived bias because PD reports to me. I'm responsible for the town. And so how it works is I report to the council, all department heads and everybody else reports to me. It's true, the chief does have a contract. Well, the past chief had a contract with the council. The supervision of the police chief is through the manager. So that's where we try to have a separation so that council members aren't directing everybody what to do. So in fairness to the mayor and Bruce, he doesn't have that role. And I think it's important to have a policymaker on this committee because, well, ultimately it's going to have to go to policymakers. So it'd be good if they're in on, at least one is in on discussion, ultimately to the ResJ, then to the council. But I think the facilitators need to make sure that it's a balanced discussion, at least in terms of there's no outside influence from our side and people feel, or the members feel that we're pushing you one way or the other. Want to be clear there. And from a staff perspective, I wanted to make sure that points are driven that when you're making your policy decisions as the committee, your recommendations or operations or whatever you're talking about, that you've definitely done a good faith effort on due diligence for how things work a certain way. Once you have the information, with that, you make certain recommendations, great. Then everybody knows you've listened and heard to everything, and the staff, we feel comfortable, the committee feels comfortable, the community should feel comfortable. We could disagree on whatever's recommended, but at least we all agree that we've given a good faith effort to try to understand. And so that's really my pitch for why I think a facilitator is very important. Set aside who the facilitator would be, obviously it probably makes sense. I spoke to Lisa about it. We don't really need to get into that this evening. We could probably do it within the existing budget. But that's why I think it's important. I wanted to share that because I didn't want to really put it on Bruce. It really was more of a staff-driven idea as a concept, what we thought might be good. And then ultimately in talking to Stephanie and Lisa, it was decided, well, let's talk to the committee, let's talk to the group, see how you feel about that concept. So I strongly believe facilitator would really be helpful for the group. It actually could help you get through things a lot quicker. I think, I agree, you got to get started rolling. You'll probably end up meeting more than once a month. That's what I think. But again, those are my opinions. Lisa did step back. I think that's great for this conversation, but she's also available if you have questions generically about the role of a facilitator and the value for a facilitator for these type of communities, because she has done that type of work before. So I'm done talking. So thanks.
Looks like Alexandra.
So I also want to express some frustration. I'm also a little confused because it seems like this came out of nowhere in terms of deciding on whether or not to have a facilitator. And I just want to raise the point of a hierarchy here, that the staff did not interview to be on this committee. The staff did not put themselves out there in the way that we did. And so I find that, I don't know what the word is, but a little insulting. And so I also was under the impression that a doodle poll was going to be sent out after the retreat. And then that didn't happen. And that's all I know until now, where this question came up. And I think that it's unfortunate that the subcommittee was not included in that. I personally don't think we necessarily need to hire a new facilitator or have one, at least for the first meeting. Maybe that's something we discuss. I just would like to have been included in that conversation as a member of this subcommittee. And again, it kind of going back to what Patrice kind of was bringing up in her frustration is that this chain of hierarchy that is kind of apparent, in my opinion, in this scenario, I'm only talking about this scenario, is really unfortunate. And I think that's where we're starting to lose. If the diversity on this committee and the subcommittee is not being utilized, then why are we here? Why are we spending this time? Like, we are all volunteering our time. And so then to have people who are being paid to then raise questions and speak almost for us, not that they have officially, just because no decision was made, and I respect that, thank you, but they are being paid and we are volunteering our time. So I would like to be included in these conversations. Yeah, respectfully, I'm not trying to like start anything, but that's how I feel.
Thank you.
So you're just, if I can clarify, Alexander, you mean the conversation about whether to consider a facilitator. That's the conversation that.
Yeah.
So that would mean convening the subcommittee and then in the first meeting of the subcommittee discussing whether we want to have a facilitator.
Yes.
For the next meeting. Okay, yeah, that's the way it could have been done. All right. Well,
So,
Daria.
Yeah. So I want to say I have a little different perspective in that I think the process is working, in that now we are identifying what we would have liked to have had happen, and we're being heard, and we have an opportunity to follow through on that. So I don't feel upset by that. I think everybody's intention is positive, and we all have ultimately the same goals. I wouldn't say that in all situations, but in this one, that's how I feel. I also personally find great value in a facilitator, especially when a committee is young and just establishing itself. So that's my personal interest. And as far as the information coming over the winter break, I personally had enough to do, and I felt like the homework was sufficient and gave me quite a bit of work to do. And I did spend some time developing my own thoughts about the police subcommittee. So, and came to this meeting prepared to speak about that if it came up. So I don't have the same concerns, but appreciate all the points. They're very valid.
I'm just going to share really quickly my thoughts on whether or not to have a facilitator. So this content that you're delving into, this topic area, is obviously really delicate and really charged. And as Garrett touched on, Lisa's obviously has a lot of expertise in this area, and it's not a matter of agreeing on an agenda. It's a matter of upholding the norms we've already agreed to, in my opinion, and being respectful, but also navigating these tricky waters and understanding this space. And this police space is really a charged environment right now, right? And so I strongly believe, after thinking about it, that a facilitator is a good idea. And I'll just leave it at that. I think I see you, Amal, but I think Patrice had her.
Just before me.
Yeah.
I guess because I've been in a world of corporate America for a very long time, I think that any of us can whiteboard, any of us can take notes, any of us can take action items. I would much rather have the mayor on this subcommittee as opposed to a facilitator. A, they know policy, to your point. B, they know the inner workings of the city. Facilitators do not. And I feel that if you look at what every city in America is doing right now in terms of race relations, the mayor adds a lot of credence to what we're doing, not a facilitator that's a third party member. So I agree with Alexandra. I think that we should take this offline within our committee, including Bruce, and decide what the best way is to proceed. Because right now we're spitballing and it's not getting us anywhere. And I think that a lot of people, including myself, have expressed frustration over our lack of action. So let's move forward, and we don't have to make a final decision, but we were selected as that committee. We should be charged with making decisions for that committee and how it should work. I
Fair
think
enough, Patrice, but I don't know that Bruce feels like he has the skill set and that he wants to be in that role of facilitator. So that's an assumption that you're making right now.
he doesn't have to be the facilitator. I'm saying that I think he'd be an integral part of the committee because it's come up tonight. Is the mayor necessary for that committee?
Okay,
And I
go
say
ahead, Amal.
yes. I say yes.
Go ahead, Amal.
I just wanted to call attention. I'm not on the committee, so I'm just throwing this out there for everybody else to debate. That's on the committee, but we have like a person in Marin County that has won multiple awards on reimagining policing, that has been recognized on so many levels, that has had a TEDx program, and that has volunteered his time in our community and has volunteered to offer his services and his insane expertise on this topic to our committees. So please keep in mind the name Jameer Reynolds as you move forward, because he is a genius resource, an incredibly heartfelt resource, and an incredible human being that we have locally that is willing to help. So I want to remind everybody of that name while you guys are considering this.
Right.
We don't have a facilitator, so who's calling on people? Like right now?
I don't know.
Okay, Serena.
I'm also not on the subcommittee, but if I could just like kind of state my opinion on the facilitator thing, I don't think I think you all would have maybe enough agency to create like an agenda, but I think the role of a facilitator might be necessary when it comes to public reactions to what is happening on the policing subcommittee, because I don't know if any of you all saw the listening sessions for renaming High School 1327, but like it can get pretty out of hand if no one's there to stop it. And just to kind of not, have hurtful words being thrown around. I think maybe having a third party who's not, on necessarily on any side to come in and like shut things down when it gets too intense is maybe a necessity. But I think that can also be judged by if a situation comes up like that, maybe you get a facilitator from then on, or, it's a needs-based thing.
Dorian?
I wanted to comment that using a facilitator doesn't mean that we have to use a facilitator forever. And also, I really like Amal's idea of tapping specific resources with expertise that would have the understanding of the really particularly sensitive dynamics to contribute to that. So again, I think these are options that we can consider, and that there's no reason why we can't move forward and make a decision that we may adjust later.
Veronica?
Bruce. I appreciate, Amal, your recommendation of Jamir Reynolds, and at the same time know that we have an incredible facilitator on our hands right now in terms of facilitating this process. She's blown me out of the water. And so in terms of a facilitator, I feel like we have one, and we can invite Lisa to come to our subcommittee meetings. Maybe we can invite Jamir Reynolds as a special speaker to us as a consultant to inform us. But Lisa's our facilitator. Why would we have to go through this process all again with somebody else?
No, I just want you to remember his name, like whether it's a facilitator, whether it's a specialist, whether it's outside, like bringing people from outside. I think it's extremely important even for the major community. We're all in Fairfax. We have access to Fairfax. We had enough economic mobility to live in Fairfax. So there's a lot of things that we're going to be blind to. So I'm very anxious to get people from outside of Fairfax and the rest of Marin County that can see the obstacles and that have had the obstacles push up against them. It doesn't have to be that they're the facilitator, but I don't want them to volunteer their time. I do feel like if people are coming to speak to us and to help us understand something that, my God, we should be able to understand by now, you know, like if they're taking their time to teach us how this, like that they should be paid. So I think that's my thing is, of course, I think Lisa's incredible. I think we also need outside, and it doesn't have to be in the role of a facilitator, just expertise on perspectives like I can't see personally.
So if I can, then I'd just like to point out, I'm trying to sort of facilitate this little bit of this conversation just because I don't know what else we would be doing, but yet I feel uncomfortable jumping in and speaking because if I'm the person calling on people, calling on myself, that is kind of why I feel like it would be good to have a facilitator, and it kind of relates to your comments, Veronica, about the role of the mayor on the, or any council member on the, you know, it's a role that should be listening and also is going to have to be really paying attention to the discussion. So I would rather not be facilitating it. And I think it would be important to have a good facilitator. And I do think Lisa has, by all of everything I've heard on this committee, been found to be an excellent facilitator. And so I would like to see Lisa facilitate. But as you said, Veronica, I'm pretty much echoing exactly what you said. I think that that doesn't have to go on indefinitely. We can, and in fact, Lisa has said for this whole ResJ that she would like to see us maybe not necessarily need her forever. And so I think certainly the same thing would be for this subcommittee. So I would love to see us choose a facilitator. I would recommend Lisa and start out with that and get going on meetings soon. And with regard to Jamir Reynolds, I would see him as a very valuable resource. Absolutely.
Just want to say we're at our time on the agenda for this and let everybody do what we will with that.
So is that something that we can, that we have some consensus on and we can move on from this agenda item and also ask?
Bruce, I do see Alexander's been trying to chime in. So I'm ready to wrap this up. I'm hoping everyone else is too, but I do know Alexander's been trying to speak.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I just really quickly wanted to say that I think bringing in outside people is great, but I think it's also important to remember that some people on this committee have also lived those experiences and also have expertise. And so I just really want to make sure that we're reminding ourselves of that and not looking at it that we're not all white here. Like I just really think that's important.
Well, and to your point about the committee the subcommittee making decisions about itself, I would certainly see the subcommittee deciding whether to bring in a resource to speak to us or whatever. So this was a particularly unique topic, the facilitator topic, because it involves our budget really. At least that's what we felt. That's why we're talking about it tonight.
I just want to say, I definitely understand that everybody here isn't white. I meant more of the economic mobility to be able to live here is what I was referring to. But I totally understand that.
Okay. All right. Garrett, have you heard what you need to hear?
We'll do the doodle poll after if tomorrow morning or when you think you'll do the doodle poll, Ann?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, and just with a show of your hands, I'm going to be doing evenings. Are people thinking that they want to meet in the afternoons or something, mornings, or just evenings? Evenings. Okay, I'll be sending it out tonight.
I'm sorry, I'm completely confused. What are you talking about that you're going to be doing in the
The
evening?
subcommittee.
The subcommittee.
Okay.
I'm sending out the doodle poll, and I just want to confirm that evenings is what I'm sticking to when I put out the poll.
You're
Fine.
talking about the poll of when we'll meet.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I think we're done with this item. I think.
Right.
I don't know if we are, Bruce. I thought that one of the points that you raised, and I think Alexandra raised this as well, is whether or not the mayor should sit on this committee. So I would like to bring that issue to a close right now if we could, so that we can move on as a policing committee. And again, I think that you would be a valuable resource because you know the town better than any of us. I mean, we know it from the outside in, you know it from the inside out. And I think that you would be helpful. And I would like to hear other people's opinion of that.
Would somebody please facilitate besides myself?
I'll facilitate.
This
Does
is an
anyone want to,
odd position to be
does
in.
anybody want to chime in related to that?
Please.
I agree with Patrice. I feel it would be fine and appropriate for Bruce to join us.
I'd like to hear from all of the subcommittee members if they feel like they would be heard with the mayor as on their subcommittee, and if they would feel completely comfortable being 100% open in speaking. So I'd like to hear from each of them.
Well, I'm on the committee and I would have no problem whatsoever being totally transparent and open with Bruce or anybody else on the ResJ. No problem.
I am also on the committee and I would have no problem at all being open, honest, and transparent with Bruce on the committee.
I'm on the subcommittee and I've expressed that I have concerns about it.
I'm on the committee, and I think it's something that I wouldn't want to decide for Bruce if he feels that this is something he is up for, and being and understanding, like being the mayor, but also being Bruce, if that even makes sense, and being able to kind of sometimes separate the mayor agenda versus the Bruce ResJ committee member agenda. But I think that's something that Bruce kind of has to decide for himself. I would never want to shove someone off this committee.
I love what you said, Alexandra. I think it speaks to the issues, and I think we're all here having made a commitment to be transparent and open. And if we have a problem, we need to speak up about it. And if Bruce were feeling conflicted, I would expect that he would identify that and share it with the group.
As far as feeling conflicted, I I mean, as folks have said, I have a view of this town that comes not just from being on the council, because I've only been on the council for 3 years, but I've been involved on the planning commission and on the general plan committee, and I'm involved with the climate action committee. So I've been pretty involved with the town, and especially the general plan work goes way back. So I guess I see the town in a way that, you know, I know the people on staff have known them for a long time and have worked with the town staff, town council members and so forth quite a bit. So I have a different viewpoint, and I haven't worked with the police as closely, but it's all part of the same sort of staff group. And I feel like there probably is I don't feel an outsider. I don't feel like I'm on the outside. I feel like I can approach the police and just as I can approach the rest of staff. And I will say everybody, staff and police, have been very approachable in my experience. And so maybe I have a bias in that way, in that I haven't had negative experiences. My son maybe has, but I haven't. So that's the best I can answer to that as far as bias. As far as my time, that's a concern. It's kind of overwhelming, all the things that are on my plate, both personally and with regard to Fairfax. And so that's my primary concern in life right now, is that there just aren't enough hours in the day. But I don't know you want to have a council member on there, and I think all the council members have the same problem. So, and we do rotate being mayor. So it maybe is more of a personal question than a mayor question. Veronica? And I just still don't want to facilitate that. I was just kind of chiming in to answer what felt like a direct question. So Stephanie, would you continue to facilitate?
We were pretty much unanimous that we want to end on time. It's 9:34. We're not through our agenda. We haven't taken open time yet. I see 2 hands lifted. I know, Veronica, you want to speak, or were you just reminding us of a time check?
Gonna say exactly what you just said.
Okay, so we need to wrap this up. I don't know how you want to do that. I'm not on the subcommittee, so y'all need to do that.
This is proof in action of how much we need Lisa.
You're gonna do the doodle poll. What else?
I would happily take this. There's more for me than can be talked through in wrapped up. So Patrice, in terms of honoring that you felt like you wanted to wrap that up right now, I would feel very happy to talk about it in our first subcommittee meeting with us more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to recommend that maybe our next step is just to set up a time for the subcommittee following the doodle poll, which I don't really understand either, but that's fine. I love living in the gray.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing
I know you're laughing with me.
No, I'm laughing at the comment living in the gray. I've never heard that before. Okay. Lisa, are we ready to transition? Okay.
I am.
I think we need to decide if we close the meeting and do public comment time, or if we proceed to the next agenda item.
Well, how about we bring Lisa back in for that?
Well, that's what I was mentioning to Lisa.
Okay. So I do just want to let Res J know I didn't just abandon Chip. I did let Bruce and Garrett and Stephanie know that if there was a conversation about a facilitator, I felt like it was a conflict of interest for me to stay engaged and facilitate the conversation about a facilitator. So I want to just let you know I didn't jump the facilitation ship. It was a very conscientious choice on my part. So thank you, Bruce, Stephanie, and Garrett, for supporting me in that choice, just for my own ethical, my integrity. Okay, so it is 9:36, and just a reminder, I do think it will be impossible to always end on time, given the unknown factor of public comment and the different extensions for discussion. That being said, you have several pending items, and just in case you don't have the agenda up, so there's a report from the Ad Hoc Mission and Vision Committee, and as far as I know, that's quick, but we were going to take some feedback so that they can go and do another revision. So my estimate is, I'd like to say 5, but realistically at a minute each, we're still talking about 12. And then we do need to take public comment regardless of what we do. We need to take it before we close. And then the only thing left after that is just closing our meeting out. So there's an item for our next meeting, process observer report out appreciations, and then we would end. So I think it really depends on how the mission vision subcommittee interest in offering feedback. Oh, and I'm sorry, my bad. I skipped the vacant Res J member seat. That was going to be a mention. So right now we need to take some comments on whether or not we close the meeting or stay in the meeting. And I'd like to do a round robin in the interest of capturing all voices, because there's some folks we haven't heard from very much tonight. So the opinion, not a vote, but just opinion, so we can get all voices in the room. Do you want to do all agenda items or just take table some and public comment? So can I start with you, Tayo? I'm just going to go top of my list.
I think that I feel like we could table the 2 seats that are empty, but I think the mission and vision statements are very important so that we can continue refining them. It'd be good to get feedback from the group.
Okay, thank you. And then Veronica, will you just give me a minute for each person as we go through, please? And a bell might be helpful, just then people know that they should end. And in this case, I am going to cut you off. So just forewarning. Okay, so next to my, just going around the circle here, Patrice.
I would love to table items, including the mission and vision, because I'd like to spend some more time with it and provide some edits. There were things that jumped out at me. There were things that resonated with me, but I don't feel like I am ready to say, here is my final on the mission and vision.
Thank you. Stephanie.
I'm wondering if we could do mission and vision as a homework assignment for people to kind of marinate on as well, and then get some input on how we want to tackle replacing committee members, because once we have some direction on that, we can actually put the wheels in motion. And that does take time if we do want to replace people. So that would be my vote.
Okay, Griselda.
I think I'd like to table both items for later.
Thank you, Daria. And then Bruce.
Yes, I'd like to table both items as well.
I'm fine with whatever people decide.
Okay, Serena, then Amal.
I think tabling both items and just giving us time to think about them and like how we would want to approach them is probably the best move, in my opinion.
Amal.
If people need time for the mission and vision to let it simmer, and that's cool. Yeah, we can table it, but we can do whatever. I'm good with either. It's getting late, but I'm good with either.
Alex, Laylee, and then Liesl.
I would like to table both of them, just in the interest of giving everyone an opportunity to think through things and also say what they want to say.
I also am in favor of tabling both of those items for additional reflection.
Liesl, you're on mute, and Veronica, you'll be next.
Thanks. Yeah, I think we could table both of them for more reflection. I also think it's really important to have time for public comment.
I also am down to table and acknowledge that there's 2 folks from the public who have had their hands raised and want to make sure that they have time to be heard.
So because this is a change in agenda, I'd like to just make it a formal action item, just in terms of public process here. That would be my recommendation, but this is your decision. So we can just make a motion and do it formally, or you could do the informal thumbs up.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to push off letter E and the mission and vision discussion of section D to our next meeting.
I second.
Second squared. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yeah. Alexandra.
Yes.
Amal.
Yes.
Daria.
Aye.
Griselda.
Yes.
Laylee.
Yes.
Liesel.
Yes.
Patrice.
Aye.
Serena.
Aye.
Teo.
Aye.
Veronica.
Aye.
Bruce.
Yes.
Stephanie.
Yes.
Okay.
Technically, there's no action for the public to speak on, so we don't really have a requirement, but we're happy to hear from the public.
So my understanding of the requirement for this item is because this is now a regular meeting, and I'm going to ask Garrett to weigh in on this, but my understanding is that because this is now a regular formal meeting with a regular meeting time, we're always required to provide for public comment as a general comment, not on a specific action item. And that did not happen at the beginning of the meeting. It needs to happen now. Garrett, can you confirm my understanding?
Yes, we actually have two things on now. One is public comments on anything on the agenda, and we set the agenda as one item, your overall discussion with the subsets. So people can comment on that. And then at the absolute end, we are required to have open time for items not on the agenda. So someone can comment to you on anything not even related to anything on the agenda. So you have two things. So yes, so public comment, and then at the end it'd be open time.
Okay, and then we will close the meeting.
Mm-hmm. That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, so currently you all voted to postpone item D2, report and feedback on the mission and vision statement, and item E, the vacant Res J seats. And so we'll move on to public comment. Lisa, I saw your hand.
Just quickly, I was going to say this also is part of our process that we do want to bring the community along and foster inclusion. So it's important to have public comment.
Thank you so much for mentioning that. Okay, so we will open public comment now, and Anne, if you could.
Great. So I have Brian Poindexter. I'm letting in.
And just as a reminder, these are items on our agenda. We'll close this section and take items not on the agenda after we finish. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Great. And is this also a 2-minute public comment? Can you hear me? 3 minutes?
3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, subcommittee. I'll try to keep this as short as I can. I should say Res J committee. I appreciate you all staying late and volunteering your time. This is such an important topic. And that's part of the reason I'm calling in today. I want to just add a citizen's voice in support of how much urgency I feel we need to be applying for the police subcommittee of this group in particular. I am also disappointed by the amount of time it's taken to stand it up. And I think some of the public revelations that we learned today have me feeling a little confused, and perhaps if the urgency isn't there. We need to sign a new MOU for police services in June. So every month that we lose on this part of the process is just going to create more intensity for the time that remains. So if there are members of the subcommittee, I should say, who are worried about time commitments, now that we have less time to do all of this work that needs to be done prior to that June deadline, I'm really worried about their remaining role on the subcommittee. I also can't help but feel that there's some disingenuousness in how I'm hearing this discussed. I'm hearing the case for a facilitator being made. The fact that it was opaque to the rest of the subcommittee is really worrisome to me. And moreover, I don't really hear a case for why there should be an alternative facilitator, when, especially today, there was so much consensus that Lisa seems to be an appropriate facilitator. So it feels to me that there's something missing in why this actually did cause the delay. So I still don't feel that a proper amount of transparency is happening for the month that we've lost. And I also don't think that we should waste any more time on this discussion about a facilitator. I'm glad that that's wrapping. And as a citizen, I would say my main focus is, okay, how do we go faster now? And what we've learned from this episode, I think, is that we need to remove any subcommittee member from having sole process ownership and becoming a bottleneck for the speed of the process. And I think that needs to be razor clear for the rest of the time. I also think having Lisa facilitate will be efficient. We've seen her do a really good job in these meetings. Part of that facilitation should be holding every subcommittee member accountable for the time that they commit to the subcommittee and the time that any deliverables for that subcommittee need to be due, so that we don't have any further delays as we go on the process from folks who have calendar constraints. In terms of the comments about Bruce's role on the subcommittee, I do have concerns as well. One is just that Renee set the precedent as a mayor of not being part of this committee. And so I think that we should at the very least have this conversation in a broader town council meeting about why that precedent is now different. Obviously, Renee knows what the responsibilities of mayorhood are. And so I'm not really transparent about why that would be a conflict of interest in her mind, but it's at least a discussion I think that we need to have a broader audience weighing in on. And I'm just have an ongoing concern about Bruce. This is not a personal attack, but when you're acknowledging that you have time constraints, I think this is going to be a very busy subcommittee. And I'm hoping that we get a policy representative there who can fully devote their time and resources to it. Thanks.
Thank you.
And Anne, I'm just going to jump in really quick. It's very hard to see you on the screen. And so is it possible for you to either hold up a piece of paper that says 1 minute left? Your fingers actually, and I have my glasses on, are really hard to see.
Okay.
There's kind of a shadow over the way you show up on our screen. So either a clock, sometimes I've seen people actually hold up their phone, or a piece of paper that we can see clearly.
Okay.
It'd have to be a very dark number. We can't see that, or I can't. Maybe I'm just the only one here.
Oh, there was nothing on it, but I know what you're saying.
Woo! All right. It is 9:50 for your facilitator for sure.
Okay. So Ziana is up next. Ziana, I'm letting you in.
Okay, so if you'll give them a 1 minute till time's up warning, please, and then just time's up, interrupt.
All right.
Hi, can you hear me? Cool.
Yep.
Hi, Resjay. It's good to see you all. And yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment regarding this subcommittee. I just think that to me, it seems pretty apparent that mayor or not having a council member on the subcommittee is actually a conflict of interest, just because all of the council members are working with the police, they're accountable to their voters. And as we saw during the last election period, because of the campaign efforts and because of the pressures of voters and all that came with that, it lagged a lot of the progress that we could make as a town in any decision, especially ones that are charged or seen as controversial, etc. Like the forming of this committee lagged because it was during an election period. And I think there was I think council members were very conscientious of that. So I think that that's always going to be a concern, is that, you know, we don't know if a council member is running for re-election, or, you know, why their voters support them and how the pressures that are going to come with that. And I think that that will always be a struggle for a council member to hold on this position. And just for their own sake, it would be very hard to be unbiased facing those pressures that, as committee members, as citizens of the town, you all won't be facing in the same way. Yeah, so with that being said, I don't think that a council member may or not has a place on the subcommittee, especially considering the topic at hand and the, divisiveness and difficulty that there's already been among the town, the citizens, and their pressures. So that's all. Thank you all for being here.
Okay, thank you. The next to talk is Joe. Joe, you're in.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, thank you for being here and thank you for being so late. I'll try and be brief. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to go a little further with the point that Brian brought up about the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, which serves as, in essence, the contract for the police department. And that expires on June 30th, and previous renewals of that have been in 3-year increments. So it's really important that this subcommittee pick up the pace and get to their findings and their recommendations so that they can be folded in and considered prior to this agreement with the police department, the next contract, because it'll become a huge hurdle for any kind of, if the decision is, even with council approval, to to have some alternatives looked at and do things a little differently. The experience is in towns like Oakland, cities like Oakland and Minneapolis, that police contracts, even with a mandate from the public, with town council approval, that the contract becomes an impediment to any kinds of shifts in public safety. So I really want to just echo how important it is that the subcommittee get to work and we move along quickly. And then, Garrett brought something up that with him and Bruce, the mayor and the town manager, being involved with the subcommittee, that there's conflicts there. And I guess that was the impetus for the discussion about a facilitator. And I might suggest that, there's been some concern about Bruce's presence, and I'll say maybe Garrett's not the best staff for the subcommittee, and that Ann should be handling that responsibility, and Garrett could be brought in to answer specific questions, much like was suggested in originally around police chiefs coming in to answer questions, because this is really, the mayor and the town manager being involved with this subcommittee sounds pretty heavy, pretty heavily weighted.
30 seconds left.
Yeah, I guess that's about it. But it's really an important one. We've demonstrated yesterday the institution of policing, whether it's in Capital, Minneapolis, or Columbus, or wherever it is, or Fairfax. The institution polices white people different than it does people of color. And so this is an incredibly important topic, and this committee's work is vital. Thanks.
Thank you. And that's it. No more hands.
Okay, we will officially close public comment for items on the agenda, and we will open public comment for items not on the agenda. Anne, do we have any hands up?
I do not see any hands.
Okay, I will close public comment for items not on the agenda. And we will move on to the closing of this meeting with your permission.
Oh, oops. Quick question. So Lisa, the other stuff on the bottom of the agenda, that got continued? Your next meeting G stuff?
That was not voted to eliminate the closing of the meeting.
Okay. Oh, so you're moving to closing meeting, not closing the meeting. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, you thought I was like, I'm out. Deuces, everyone.
I'm done. Okay. And then just as clarification, the hands that are up, I'm not sure if they actually want their hands up to talk on items not on the agenda, or they just forgot to take their hands down, or we forgot to take their hands down. Just,
Okay, Anne said she didn't see hands. We can open it back up.
They're also still panelists.
I see Brian has Joe took his hand down, but Brian still has his virtual hand up. So I'm not sure that means.
No, it's down. Everyone.
Down? Oh, okay. My bad. Thank you.
Okay, so just Amal, I see your hand. Just 1 second. I just want to clarify. Nobody has a hand up for any more comment. Okay.
Public.
What, Bruce?
Of no one of the public.
Yes, that I got. I'm just checking on the public right now. Okay, Amal. You're on mute.
I just wanted to take a moment to apologize to Alexandra if my wording sounded like I didn't see our members. What I really meant is these walls we have around certain towns, and then it can be hard when we live in the town to see the difficulty of entering the town. But I just wanted to acknowledge that and apologize if my wording was not on point.
Yeah, no, I definitely was not offended by what you said. I just wanted to raise the point that sometimes for us too, it's hard to enter the town, even though we live here. That's all. I just wanted to make sure that that was voiced, but totally, thank you.
Okay, anything else before I close the meeting?
May I just thank the public comments? They were all very important, and I'm so glad that we heard from everyone.
Tayu.
This is totally completely off topic, but as we are the ResJ committee, we don't have a translator. So if we have the public that speaks Spanish, we don't have a way to translate. I mean, yes, you could do it, Lisa, but I think that's something that we really have to consider. And I think it's an important thing because we do have a Spanish speaking community here and we're here to serve them. So it's just something I've really noticed during this meeting a lot. Like, anyway, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, at some point, if you're interested, I'm happy to weigh in on that. We did a lot of work on inclusion in some of our other Zoom meetings. Tayu's super familiar with that, with that process. Okay, any other comments?
Thank you, Tayu.
Okay. Two just quick notes from me as your facilitator. So one is just the reminder that a lot of the questions you're asking will get answered when you go into your subcommittees. The ideas that you're working through and processing in your subcommittees, that you're actually going through a subcommittee kind of cycle, what we call like cycle of inquiry, where you're, what's the problem at hand? How are you going to get data and information on that problem? And then what are you going to do with the data and information regarding the problem you're trying to solve, and then thinking about the actions that are going to, solve that problem and kind of moving through that process. So just a reminder, you don't have to have it all resolved tonight, and that a lot of the things you're talking about are going to happen in your subcommittees. And then also, I would actually like to ask for some feedback from all of you, and I'm going to ask for it just individually in an email. So don't, just in the interest of the Brown Act, don't send it all in a whole group email. And I have a specific feedback question regarding participation. So one thing in my facilitation, I try to take note when I'm doing something very purposefully, and I don't often in the interest of time. But the reason is to the point of, my hope is that I build your capacity and you need less of me. I want you all to have the capacity to run and lead and build all of these things on your own and also mirror that work in your subcommittees. And so today I used a lot of strategies to try to build inclusive participation. And one of the challenges that we have every time we plan an agenda is, do we keep a time for open dialogue? It's much easier to make it shorter. You saw we tried a new strategy today, 10 minutes open dialogue. Inevitably, someone will be excluded. The alternative, which we tried at the last 2 meetings, were round robins. And every single person got a comment. And then we had open dialogue and we closed. Much more inclusive and much, much more lengthy. So minimum 1 minute to get a thought out realistically. We have 12 members. If you give everybody 2 minutes every time you need to have a conversation, you're looking at minimum half hour. So my feedback question is just really for you all to give us as agenda planners. So what my intention will be is to bring it back to Bruce and Stephanie, who right now are the current folks planning the agenda, and just give us information, what is working best for you. The goal is everybody is able to participate to the full extent that they want and need to participate as a ResJ member, uninhibited by obviously race, class, gender, and any other constraints, particularly equity constraints. And so every time we do a dialogue opportunity, we have to make those decisions. Do we need a really full, robust dialogue, much longer time, or do we shorten it? And we try to do our best judging and then giving you lots of opportunities to change course. And for me, that's a facilitation strategy for equity, where I stop and ask the group where you want to go with something. So if you can just really short, it doesn't need to be lengthy. You're also welcome to call me. Just give us feedback. What's working for you in regards to equitable participation? And I mean all voices in the room, and that's a norm of yours. And how would you like to see a balance of talk time, knowing the implications for talk time? Those are my 2 questions. Definitely not to discuss right now. I just want the feedback so that I can really be making sure I'm touching base with all of you. And then at some point, what I will request, probably February, is that I actually have a phone call with you. And we just have a kind of feedback phone call so that I can really get a read on how this is going for you and what adjustments we need to make. All right, items for next meeting. Stephanie, did you want to mention this?
No,
you had asked for this?
No, let's wrap it up.
Okay.
I'll cover it next time.
Okay. Process observer, and then I just want to give you foreshadowing that we are going to take the time for appreciations. I think it's really important to end on a positive team building note. So I know we're late, but I do want to make time for that. So process observer, we don't need to necessarily see the whole document, but if you could summarize just the main points. And you don't have to go item by item either. Just a summary would be great.
Okay, good. Some of the items in retrospect, I realize I'm not even sure what they mean. But anyway, I think in general, we did well. We were open, we were honest, we were brave, there was risk taking, respect. I think I'm a little conflicted about ask questions and don't assume. There's a little bit of a balance between people being open and honest and sort of feeling like there was a little bit of assumption about people's motives in doing things that was hard. So let's see. In terms of each person has the opportunity to speak, share airtime and is heard. I felt like we did less well, although it got better towards the end. I mean, we were okay, but there were definitely people who were not getting to speak. Okay, so most of this, the other thing I think was being reflective and owning privilege. I would say that especially at the first part of the meeting, those of us that talk more definitely talk more, and a lot of the people that talk more were white. I think white identifying. I could be wrong about some people. And so that's something I want to keep thinking about. We did bring community along and foster inclusion, and I think overall, especially with facilitation, we did start getting more airtime for people. So,
what was the last comment? I didn't hear it.
So overall, I think we did good, but there were some little, bumps.
Okay. And I think just as a point, it isn't, good or bad. Really, these process observations are a tool for equity and just a reflection. And so I want to encourage us, like, if there's a challenge, that's a note to our team. Essentially, you're a team. And that's just a note that we need to reflect on, and we need to make sure we're building that muscle together. So I know that Tayu, you had a hand up? No? Okay, thank you so much, Liesel. Just with a quick thought, Liesel, how is that to use the tool that you all made, essentially?
I feel like there's a little bit too many points, and that some are less clear than I thought they were when we were deciding on them. Mostly, I like the tool itself. It's nice to have the 3 options. I almost would put it on a scale of 1 to 5, but that's me. It works.
Okay, so that's just food for thought for the team. It's always open to revision if you feel like it gets too cumbersome with 500 norms there. All right, so we are going to do round robin for appreciations. You're welcome to pass if you don't feel so moved. This is, of course, optional. And so would anyone like to, not do over a minute for sure. And 30 seconds would be great, but no pressure. Anybody like to start us off?
I'll just say that I appreciate the honesty and in the discussion that we had earlier, and gives me a lot to think about. So thank you all.
Tayu, and then Griselda.
I'd like to just really appreciate the group, the ad hoc mission vision statement committee, that it was wonderful to work with these women, and
excuse me, sorry.
We got it out in like record time. And I'm glad you guys are going to take time to really read it and give us good feedback. Thank you.
Sorry. When it gets to 10 o'clock and you're a facilitator, it's I really try to keep that straight face. My son started playing the harmonica right outside the door. So I apologize for digressing and not muting myself. Who is up next? Griselda, yes, thank you.
I just want to acknowledge the risk-taking that people who had different views and understandings, Veronica, Alexandra, Patrice, and I like to acknowledge that Bruce was listening. And so I think, like Daria said, that the system is working. Thank you.
Thank you. Serena.
I was going to say the same thing. And then I also wanted to appreciate everyone who left a public comment.
Liesel.
I'm just I'm grateful for Veronica for keeping time, but for also the group talking about starting and ending on time, but also being flexible about thinking about how to do that and strategizing. I thought that was great.
Veronica.
I feel grateful for you, Liesel, for taking on that process observer. I know it can be just kind of intense almost. And Bruce, I appreciate, I felt you listening and felt your humility in your response to what I was feeling. I really appreciate it.
Daria.
I wanted to appreciate Veronica for her clarity in her statements of concerns and their neutral quality, that they were not accusatory or assumptions I did not feel were made. I thought you expressed very clearly what your thoughts and concerns were, and it was because of that, it was very effective.
Amal.
Just wanted to say thank you in particular to Patrice, Veronica, Alexandra, and Bruce. I always get I have this tense reaction anytime anything tense could happen. And I was just very impressed with how well everybody heard and moved through everything. So it made me feel like, wow, good group.
Alex.
Yeah, I just appreciate that this is feeling like a safe space and that we can all listen and take things in and process without hopefully feeling personal, just allowing people to voice their thoughts.
Stephanie.
I second that. Thank you, Alexandra. It feels very safe to me too. And even when I disagree, I with any of you, I just respect all of you so much, and I'm really honored to be part of this group. And I'm really excited that we stood up to subcommittees tonight. And I also want to share with the group, without gushing too much, how much I enjoyed working on the Mission and Vision subcommittee with the group of women who are really talented and wonderful individuals. And so when you have time, take a look at it and gather your thoughts, and we'll reconvene next month.
And so just wait time is a strategy, just to transparent facilitation there. Any last thoughts of appreciation? Okay. I do want to have appreciation for all of you, which is just, I really appreciate your feedback. I'm here to be in service of you and racial justice in the community of Fairfax. And so I do appreciate your feedback, both, before, during, and after the meetings. It just helps me know how to be in better service of all of you. So I'm grateful to be here and thank all of you for being here. I would like to ask if anybody is interested in holding a land acknowledgement next time. I'd like to share some facilitation there. And the only thing that I would ask is that it is a representation of Indigenous voice in the broader scope of that meaning versus a simple, we are on Coast Miwok land. Does anybody want to either do that on your own, or you're welcome to partner with me to do it? Stephanie? I don't know what we all are in different locations on the screen. So I don't know who you're all pointing to.
People were volunteering, so then I volunteered, but then I saw Veronica, so have Veronica do it.
Who's volunteering?
Okay, I'll volunteer. I was volunteering because nobody volunteered.
Okay, Veronica, would you like to take it on your own, or you want to touch base?
I've been inspired by you to find some land acknowledgements of Indigenous voices, and have been sharing those in Surge Marin calls, so have one already in mind.
Okay, and so then I've been trying to keep it, if I read anything and play anything, very short, under 3 minutes. But that's just me. Stephanie?
Great.
So the town has one that we worked with Joe Sanchez and Lucina Vidari on. So, it wouldn't be problematic, I don't think, if and Serena was involved with that as well. I don't know that it would be problematic if we established a different one, but I just wanted to make sure that the town council adopted one through working with the Coast Miwok, and then other committees in town have adopted it as well. So
is it a statement?
Yeah. And it's pretty brief, and they provided a pretty lengthy one, and then we kind of, went back and forth on it. So the lengthier one we put into the Mission and Vision, so you can see that for yourself.
So just in the interest of time, and if you guys actually want, I did that as my choice as a facilitator, and what I feel a responsibility to do as a facilitator. So it is very personal for me to create that space. And I recognize that work has been done, and we are on Coast Miwok land. I grew up on Coast Miwok land. So I think if we want to revisit how that happens in this meeting, then that's a ResJ choice. And I just want to make the distinction of my choice as a facilitator versus an actual decision of the ResJ. So if it's okay with everybody for next time, why don't we read the land acknowledgement that was created, of course, with the Kosamee Walk and adopted. And then I think a short offering would still be appropriate. And then if we need to actually have a conversation about it, we can do that. Are people good with that? Okay. Part of that, just in full transparency, is that there really has been a request from Indigenous communities that we are forward thinking in how we, if we offer or represent any part of Indigenous communities, that we're making sure we're talking about present day issues and bringing like current events to the table. So that's just my own personal rationale. So with that, I want to thank everybody and officially close out our meeting for the night. I will look forward to getting all your feedback and taking it into consideration for the next meeting. And I wish everybody a thoughtful week and a reflective week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.